If you're a Yao, Ya or Talata, today happens to be your day. Welcome to Thursday on the AM show. We're glad to have you. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. As always, I do this together with Bernice Abubedu-Lanta. Welcome aboard. Shortly, I'll be serving you the news, giving you all the tidbits across the spectrum of information. But right after that, I'll be joined by Bobby Banton, a lawyer who will actually come and join us for the news review. He'll be joining us, by the way, via Zoom. And after that, we zoom actually into our big stories. The first one we're going to be looking at, we continue our conversation on what's happened in Parliament since the House resumed its sitting. Yesterday, the House deliberated on issues in respect of a new CI the Electoral Commission wants to introduce. The CI makes the Ghana card the only identification document acceptable to enroll onto the voters' register. Now, there's been a back and forth between both sides of the House, the minority and the majority. The minority leader, Dr. Cassia Lato-Forson, says the NDC is still opposed to a new constitutional instrument the Electoral Commission is seeking to lay before the House. But Majority Leader Osei Mensah-Bonsu says if the new CI is not approved in time, the EC will not be able to conduct the district-level elections later this year. What are the issues surrounding this matter? We've got the latest on this and other issues on our chopping board this morning. But we'll also take a look at some trending issues in Ghana. For example, in Tamale, staff of the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NETCO, are on a sit-down strike to demand the removal of Osmani Ayuba as managing director of the company. We'll find out why. They have partially withdrawn their services and say they'd only attend to emergency situations. We've got that on our table as well. We'll also be getting you the latest from Boku. That place has come to the fore again. We'll be speaking to someone who is doing some work there to help resolve the impasse. All of that for you on the AM show this morning. As always, we're also offering you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us in the course of the live stream. Don't you forget, as you share your messages, tweet at us, post at us on Facebook, use the hashtag AMShow. And when we activate the phone lines, it's about you. Call and let's talk about Ghana, our country. On that note, let's settle for the news right up next. Thank you for staying for the news. Let's get to our first story now. The National Road Safety Authority is checking the roadworthiness of school buses that transport students to private schools in the Malambawe neighborhood. This is in response to calls by some parents that these buses are unfit for their intended use. There is more in this report by Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah.
The National Road Safety Authority says it has observed that some buses transporting school children across the country are not fit for purpose. Generally, some of the buses appear to be rickety, and some are seats without seat belts, and many more. Today, a team from the National Road Safety Authority are here to inspect the buses, to discuss the faults that they find with these buses, and to give recommendation to the head teachers.
And no one should sit here, but it seems they are managing this place for students to sit.
So once you found these things out, something like this out, what do you intend to do? Because this time around, you're not going to be here, and they are still going to continue to use this with the students.
Yeah, so what we'll do is that we report to the transport manager, and then they will do something about it. They will make sure that no students will sit here. And then looking at how the condition of the bus, some portion of the seats are not functioning. Looking at the seat belt,
sure,
this one they are not even using. You can see that
it's dusty.
Yeah, they are not using, but which means they are supposed to use it all right, but they are not using. Okay, so we are from National Road Safety, and we are doing checks on your car. So far, what we've seen is that there are some places where students are not supposed to sit, but they are sitting. You see where the engine, when you enter, they are not supposed to sit there.
Okay.
But we've put in some cushion for students to sit on. which is not safe. Yeah, and then we have seen that we are having a fire extinguisher and then first aid box. Because you were not here, we decided to check. And then the seat, when the students sit on the seat, they are supposed to have a seat belt. Do you get it? But the seat belt is there, but you are not using. You are not using the other side that have the seat belt. No, we've checked. We've seen that they have seat belts.
The authority has been given mandate for institutional compliance. So the authority is supposed to ensure that every institution complies with the road safety regulations. And also we realized that last year we gave a directive to all schools to make sure that their buses are in order. We also informed them that there should be an adult who will be in the bus to help the driver when the students are getting down, when they are lighting, when they need to cross. Yes, and there is also supposed to be a traffic warden at the roadside helping the students to cross to come to school. So it was necessary that we come around and make sure that these notices that we've given to them, they are going according to it. So
no, this is just the beginning. This is not going to be the end. So we just started. So it's running nationwide. So we are ensuring that throughout the year we are going to go to all the schools that we've been. This is just a warning. We'll go back and do a follow-up and make sure that they've really go by what we ask them to do. If they've not done it, then there's going to be sanctions. So what is going to happen is if you don't comply, then obviously your license is going to be revoked. And that's one of the sanctions. And you're also going to be fined penalty units.
Just as we've heard from the National Road Safety Authority, measures are being put in place to ensure the safety of our children on the roads. For JoyNews, Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah.
Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma wants consensus building between government and stakeholders for economic progress. He says an effective collaboration between the two is what the country needs to develop. He was speaking to the leadership of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, which presented a communique from their annual national conference.
Thank you for this visit to us and for bringing these issues through us to central government. It's always good that we have the opportunity to engage with our fathers. And I also want to commend you for the successful nature of your annual conference. Again, I want to acknowledge the fact that you didn't only focus on spiritual matters. Those spiritual matters are very, very important. I fellowship at the International Central Gospel Church with my prayer partner here. And I also spent some time in worship and prayer at the World Prayer Center, Prophet Nanase Opoku Sarkodie. And between the two places, there's a lot of admonition about righteousness and holiness, not just salvation, but righteousness and holiness even here on earth. So I think that even your mention of it this morning as something that the church wants to advocate a lot more for fits within a certain broader context of what is ongoing. But even beyond that, I'm happy to know that there are contemporary issues that are engaging your attention and you want to speak about it. I think the comment I'll make at this stage is that we are pleased to see some deepened engagement. We can all agree that our engagement over the years could have been better than it is now. Yes. But I think it is good to see that we are seeing some deepened engagement, and there's a need for this constant engagement so that we can build consensus between government and various stakeholders to move our society forward. Any conversation in which all parties are holding on to their previously entrenched position is a conversation that will most likely not move forward. So it is good to know that we are deepening engagement and that between government and various stakeholders we can move forward. Different stakeholders come to matters with different views, but it is through engagement that we are able to find common ground. The matters that you have raised, some of which I see here, are of keen interest to any administration, including this administration, and they are matters that I believe we should take seriously. just a couple of things that I would say to wrap up my remarks. Faith-based organizations like the church and for other religions, there are other groups, are our foundation. You are our North Star. And though sometimes there may be differences in how the society should be governed or things should be done, I think that it is important to, while we engage a lot more with you so that we don't miss our North Star. At the same time, I think it's also important that the other elements of the society are also, may I say, brought apart with some of the things that I think some deepened understanding will make it easier for us to, congregate on. And so I will ferry this to central government, and as you draw the attention of other groups to it, I hope that they would also ferry it to central government, and that all sides will work towards a certain common understanding of what we desire to do as a country.
Now, metal kiosks are used for commercial and sometimes residential activities in Ghana. More often than not, they are transported from one location to another. However, the materials used to fabricate these containers are unsuitable for transport. These containers therefore end up being defaced or partially destroyed during movement. Fortunately, the Department of Industrial Art of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has developed a transportable container kiosk. On Tech Thursday, Love FM's Kwesi Deborah speaks with the innovator, Dr. Samuel Ban-Kisi.
Researchers discovered that these containers rusted at a fast rate due to the use of mild steel instead of galvanized steel to manufacture them. Mild steel appeared less resistant to atmospheric conditions and even rusted faster because they were placed on concrete. To address these problems, the study developed an alternative design that is easily dismountable, transportable, and easily assembled without damaging its quality and physical outlook. The new design addresses the problem of rust by creating pedestals that are not made of cement. Dr. Samuel Ban-Kisi is the lead researcher.
There's this nuisance where you walk through the streets in Ghana, Kumasi, and in Accra specifically. You come to realize that there are a lot of these metal kiosks or metallic containers all around, which people use, and then their colors, the way they've been situated, it doesn't make the streets so aesthetically appealing. And then being an artist, also coming from the background of science and technology, of which I work over there as KNUST lecturer, then why don't you come up with something to better the life of the people? I really wish that this research work in itself will be taken up. And it gives so much on the transportability and then demountability, in that one will be able to be demountable, that will be able to disassemble quickly, and then also reassemble wherever, and then also transport it to wherever you want to go to with ease. Now, depending on what it will be used for, it is going to be used as, let's say, permanent or a resident for residential purpose. Then there are some details that we put in place if you make an order. If you want it to be used basically for retails and all of that, yeah, once you build in the kiosk or of that form, there are some details that we put into place. But the point is that there are many that are coming up, that are containers and all of that, and they are not meant for the general public. Those ones are huge, expensive. But this research now looks at the general public, the Ghanaian person, the general normal Ghanaian who want to build his kiosk, who want to build a container, how much goes into it, and then how energy, we can conserve energy, how we can also use that simple or little space to make the street beautiful without incurring costs in the future if you want to move it that way.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
Let's head now to the Upper West region, and Chairman of the Regional Security Council, Dr. Hafiz bin Salih, believes government is committed to retooling security agencies to ensure that they execute their mandate satisfactorily. He says government has done this by increasing peacekeeping allowances from $31 a day to $35, and also supported initiatives that provide further educational opportunities for security personnel to enhance their skills at maintaining peace, security, and the territorial integrity of the country. Rafiq Salam reports.
The 10 Mechanized Agri Barracks, better known as Home of Peoples, was the host of the first Joint West Africa Security Service social activities was a celebration in the Upper West region. This year's celebration is unique. Hitherto, the various security agencies in the region used to hold the event separately. The event, which should have been held at the tail end of last year, but owing to some operational exigencies in the one municipality, it was however postponed. The occasion, which is fully funded by the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, President Akufo-Addo, is aimed at socializing, interacting, and making merry after a lengthy mandated and hectic year of work as law enforcement officers. Present at the function was members of the Upper West Regional Security Council, led by its chairman, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, and municipal and district chief executives, heads of decentralized departments, and some selected security personnel in the region. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali stated that government is determined to give support that is required to ensure that security agencies in the country do their work without any let or hindrance.
In furtherance of our commitment to improving your welfare, this administration has increased the peacekeeping allowance effective January 2017 from $31 to $35. Government is also committed to enriching the human resource base of our security services by supporting initiatives that will provide further education for officers and other ranks of our security services to enhance their skill at maintaining peace, security, and protecting our territorial integrity.
Principal State Attorney at the Office of the Attorney General's Department in the Upper West region, Lawyer Shahid Abdul Shakur, was commending the security agencies for working to ensuring that there is peace in the country, however, aid for communal support for them to enable them execute their mandate. Lawyer Said, however, wants the security services to weed out some bad nuts that have slipped through into the profession and tarnishing their image.
If you find one indisciplined person in any security service, the person constitutes a grave present danger to any other officer. And I want to entreat the leadership that if you find them, don't shield them. Take steps to weed them out for your own sake and for the sake of society. The reputation that the military, let me take the military out for, the reputation they enjoy is because of the way they swiftly deal with officers that fall by the wayside. And I want to encourage all other security services to ensure that if anybody fumbles, the person should be taken out immediately for your own sake.
Commander of the 10th Mechanized Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Kwesi Jima, pledged a commitment of the security agencies to working together to ensuring that the security of the nation remains their topmost priority.
I envision a future where the security services are united in effort and where cooperation and collaboration are the norms. This can be achieved through several measures that I would like to highlight few. One, it is crucial that we maintain our regular communication and collaboration between ourselves. This could be done through regular meetings and joint training exercises where we can exchange best practices, share information, and coordinate our efforts. Secondly, I believe that it is important for us to invest in technology and training to enhance our capabilities.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam.
In our next story, former Minister for Public-Private Partnership, Dr. Rashid Pelfo, is worried about the number of dilapidated school structures in the country. He says he feels embarrassed and ashamed anytime he sees students learning in these structures. That's another report put together by Rafiq Salam.
Former Minister of Private-Public Partnership, Dr. Rashid Pelfo, stated that he felt embarrassed and shameful anytime he sees dilapidated school structures with children lying on the rough, dirty bare floor to write. he went in for the jugular of the MPP government and blamed them on their refusal to continue with the policy of the NDC government in expanding infrastructure in the education sector to accommodate the needs of students.
For areas where the deplorable conditions are very glaring, as he says, and you cannot intervene in any significant manner, you feel very bad about it. You can only go and promise the people that in the near future, when you are in charge, things can change and you can do better. But as it is, it pains your heart that children who are growing need to be taken care of, need to have conducive space for learning, are unable to secure those conditions, and their failure is then blamed on them. It's unacceptable. So I think that it's a deplorable, it's regrettable, it's unacceptable, and I want to call on government, if they were sleeping, to wake up and do a comprehensive check on what is happening.
Dr. Pelfo, ever since he launched his safe term bid for Parliament, he has been busy with donations to some institutions and communities that have made some requests to him seeking support to ameliorate the challenges they are facing. He however debunked the notion that the donation dole out is intended to woo global voters to his fold by challenges that needs to be fixed.
Oh, I've been doing this all along. The things I have mentioned to you have been done in the last 2 years. This is just continuing. From here, I'm going to another structure to do what I'm supposed to do. The primaries is still 2 months away. I could wait and do it 1 month or 3 weeks to the primaries to convince my people I can do something. But because this is a period, my work in progress starts from when I'm elected until when I'm giving up, or when we are conducting another election. That space of time is available for me to do all the kinds of things I'm doing.
On his chances at the NDC World Central Parliamentary Primary, where a handful of parliamentary hopefuls are breathing on his neck in their bid to defeat him, he appears to be resolute and unshaken about the threat.
For support of the people, I can always say thank God for that. There is, at the moment, if I'm not being deceived, about 90% of support for me. And with that 90%, I don't want to contradict the will of the people. The will of the people says that they want to see me back in Parliament. I'm confident that they are telling me the truth, and that with collaborating with them and working along with them, we are going to make it big for West Central and create a conducive atmosphere for younger people coming after me to see that being a member of Parliament means committing yourself to serving the people.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam. Wah.
Our last story comes to us from the OT region, where the Dododompa Basic School A in the KJB district has been provided with a 3-unit classroom block by not-for-profit organization Pencils of Promise. This would curtail the challenges being faced by the school, like a lack of infrastructure, which compelled the authorities to house some classes under a mud structure. There is more in this report.
Dododompa Basic School in the KJB district of the OT region lacked enough infrastructure. This 2-unit mud structure was initially erected to accommodate the kindergarten department. The development had impeded academic activities and also affecting enrollment. Agbesit Sharema is the headmaster of Dododompa DA Basic School.
Previously, the school had no KG block, so the community and the PTA decided to put up this structure here, which we were using for the KG. By looking at it, it was not conducive for the children. So I had to move the KG children to the lower classes, class 1 and class 2, so that we will bring the class 5 and class 6 to this part.
Learning of the plight of the school, the KJB MP, Engineer Yao Gomado, approached Pencils of Promise to support his office erect a structure for the kindergarten department.
I was partly brought up here, and we knew what we had gone through in terms of education. We were fortunate to finally have the primary school, but kindergarten and the JHS was a problem for us, especially the children as their numbers were increasing.
with support from our international organization, Floki. A 3-unit classroom block and a sanitary facility were erected. The Ghana Country Director of Pencils of Promise, Freeman Goba, explained his outfit is determined to ensure that every child has equal access to education.
Our core mandate is to provide school infrastructure, sanitation facility for schools that do not have these structures. The other one that we also do, because we know that a school is not only the physical structure we are seeing, though a key part of education delivery. So we also support teachers through our teacher support program, where we provide education or training through workshops for teachers that are in this classroom. We want to be sure that these classrooms are being put in good use. So we'll be visiting the community, just like we are doing for all the other schools that we have built, the 197 schools we've built within these 10 years that we've been operating in Ghana.
When a child wakes up, nobody will ask the child to go to school because the child knows that there's a good environment where he or she can come and learn. So the structure will help promote school attendance and also teaching and learning in the school.
Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, Dodo Dompa.
That's it for the news. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. And that big story there right now, AG asks Auditor General to unpublish premature COVID-19 audit report. That and many other stories on myjoyonline.com. But stay with us. In the next few minutes, we gear up for the news review. The news review is up next. Thank you for your company. Let's get into the daily graphic this morning. And Turkey earthquake, Achu's whereabouts are known. This is developing into a rather complicated and sad story. He was not found. Then we heard that he had been found. And now we hear he's actually not been found. We don't know his whereabouts because supposedly we had been told at a point that he had been recovered, he had been found with some injuries, and that he was in hospital getting treatment. But now the story just seems to be shifting the goalposts, leaving all of us with our hearts in our mouths, especially those closest to him. We'll bring you some details of that from page 16 of the Daily Graphic. But there's also downsized government, cut cost, Pentecostal and Charismatic Council says so, and they're becoming more vehement in their calls for this. There's also, and typical of our country, $85 million project abandoned for 12 years due to funding and litigation. $85 million, Ghana for $85 million. That's a lot of pay. Abandoned 12 years. At whose cost? You guess. I'll bring you details of that story. There's also continuous voter registration, EC to lay new CI before Parliament. That CI that has been a bone of contention between the minority and the majority. And Ghana close to 50% cocoa processing target. That's according to Kojopon Nkrumah. In recent times, I think it was yesterday, we read a story where he was encouraging people to eat chocolate, use cocoa products. And I was also asking, fair call, but has he checked the prices of cocoa products, chocolate, on the market recently? The average Ghanaian, very average Ghanaian, can you afford a bar of chocolate? That's a question. And on the back page, there is 50 million Ghana cedi narcotics destroyed and mother-child killed in Bolga as truck and tricycle collide. I'll bring you details of those stories. But let's start from page 16. Two major stories there that I'd like us to take a look at. And here we go. Downsized government, cut cost. That's the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council saying so. So what exactly have they been saying? Let me bring you some details of that. The Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council has said there is an urgent need to downsize government's machinery and cut down on expenditure to build confidence to address the country's economic challenges. The ecumenical body also emphasized the importance of the government demonstrating a strong sense of burden sharing to encourage key bondholders to fully accept the domestic debt exchange program voluntarily to help the country make its debt sustainable. Quoting them, it says, this should include the government explicitly and verifiably cutting down on its expenditure, including reducing the size of government, among other areas. This is critical to encourage the buy-in of the public. A communique issued at the end of the GPCC's Conference of Heads of Churches and Organizations Extraordinary National Delegates Conference said. Now, the communique signed by the newly elected president of the GPCC, Apostle Eric Nyameche, said it was the view of the 2023 CHCO that the economy of Ghana was currently, in dire straits, and that the government could not approach the resolution of the current economic situation in a business-as-usual manner. So that's the story there. It goes on to talk about the interest of citizenry and the state and providing that national forum for the financial sector. But let's go to Turkey for more news on that earthquake. Achu's whereabouts are known, and it breaks my heart that we're still at this point where we do not know what exactly is going on with our brother. But to the details of the story. Frantic efforts are being made to locate the whereabouts of Ghanaian international football star Christian Achu following conflicting reports on whether he has been rescued or not from the rubble 4 days after being caught in the earthquake that hit Turkey and parts of Syria. While his agent, Nana Setre, is asking for prayers to locate where Achu is, the Ghana embassy in Turkey says it is working closely with rescue teams to locate the whereabouts of the Ghanaian winger almost 48 hours after he was reportedly rescued from the rubble. At the moment, the whereabouts of the player are not known, as both Ghana's ambassador to Turkey, Francisca Ashite Odunton, and officials of Achu's Turkish club Hatayspor say they have not located the hospital the player was reportedly sent to. Neither have they been able to establish contact with him. Nana Setre revealed in a post on Twitter yesterday morning that the player had not been located. And quoting him, he writes, following yesterday's update from the club that Christian had been pulled out alive, we're yet to confirm his whereabouts. As you can imagine, this continues to be a devastating time for his family, and we are doing everything we can to locate Christian. Let's pray for his location and recovery, he said in his Twitter post. So those stories there, downsizing government and Achu's whereabouts still unknown. Our hearts, our prayers are with him because he is one who very passionately has donned our red, gold, green and black and represented us. And this, we just pray. We just pray and hope. It is really sad. But we've seen miracles in the past, and we're hoping that God will, excite us all with a miracle on his behalf. Let's also go to and look at this story in politics. Prosecute NDC Swami, youth organizer. I'm sure you may have followed that story. Let's get some details on that. The New Patriotic Party has called for the swift prosecution of Swami, constituency youth organizer of the NDC, Razak Kwampa, for inciting political violence in a viral video circulating on social media. The party said the move would serve as a deterrent to others who may be harboring similar intentions. The party also called on the NDC to disown and expel the youth organizer without delay. In the said video, Mr. Kwampa is alleged to have said the NDC had suffered a lot of violence at the hands of the MPP and that it was time the party responded in equal measure and urged the youth to do whatever they could to ensure that the NDC returned to power. The National Communications Director of the MPP, Richard Ahangba, made the call at the maiden bi-weekly press updates instituted by the Communications Directorate of the party at the party's headquarters yesterday. Quoting him, he says, "We believe the NDC youth organizer did not speak in isolation or misspoke. He is clear-eyed. His remarks reflect the culture and ethos of the NDC. We expect the police and the courts to bring this Swami youth organizer to justice very quickly to deter others who might be harboring similar violent and delinquent thoughts in the NDC." Now, I listen to Richard Ahiagba and I reflect on what he says from two angles. First off, we have to get rid of this situation where especially the youth are used from both parties, the NPP and the NDC. I'm surprised he's painting a picture here because we've seen NPP as well in very dastardly acts. But whether it is the goose or the gander, it is wrong. So the NDC does it, the MPP does it. We must stem the tide of this. And if this is an allegation, if it is proven that this individual did this, compromising, so to speak, the security of our country, let the law have its way. Just as those 12, and some of them, I think about 4 of them have been apprehended now at the national delegates, is it conference or congress? I always get it mixed up, of the NDC. And some of them engaged in activities that were inimical to the process. The police has, nabbed about 4 of them, if I recall, and the law is taking its course. That is what must be done. What I do not like is the hypocrisy in this. And sometimes I listen to these party communicators. Well, he is the chief communicator of the party, Richard Ahiagba, saying this person, that is if he spoke, did not misspeak. He spoke clear-eyed, and that it reflects the culture and ethos of the NDC. Need I remind some of these people about what happened some time back in a court of law where a justice of the court was attacked? Need I remind him about similar actions of party members, youth, and other situations? I don't think we need to go down that road or on that trajectory. All I'm saying is it is condemnable if proven to be true. And that is the law. That is the beauty of it. You must bring evidence. You must adduce evidence and show that someone actually did something. And then the law will take its course. So let's not just speak because we want to say something or because it is in the best interest of our party. What is the situation on the ground? Our foot soldiers still doing their thing. In the different constituencies, different parts of our country. We ought to nip that in the bud ahead of election 2024, whether they are NDC or MPP, whether they are green, white, black and green, and white, or whether they are blue, white and red. We need to nip it in the bud. That's not what we need. And especially, that's not what we need our youth being up to. I had an interaction yesterday after class in the evening with a gentleman who is close to those who walk the corridors of power. And trust me, we need fresh ideas, boisterous ideas from young people in leadership. But at the same time, and I keep saying, like Mo Ibrahim said, we keep electing these 60 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus year-old leaders into office. Where are they leading us? To the grave? Africa, that's what we do. Look at countries like France, Croatia, New Zealand, go to the Scandinavian countries, Sweden and the rest. How old are the leaders? 30-something, 40-something. And they are the advanced countries. And we are here, we've never elected a woman president. We don't elect young people into such office. I do not know what we're thinking, but if we want to think into the future, we need these young people at post. But the other side of the conversation is, I shudder because you speak to some of these young people and you see there's a danger in knowledge. Some of these young people are very smart. And some of them are watching our very corrupt misleaders right now. And they are learning all the tricks from them and adding their smartness, their finesse. So imagine when some of these young ones come to power. They will do even worse. That is my fear. I pray for this country. And the NDC calls for pardon. The National Democratic Congress has made a passionate appeal to the Ghana Police Service to pardon its youth organizer for the Swami constituency, Razak Kwampa, who was arrested yesterday and charged with offensive conduct. I'm just adding that as a snippet, an add-on to what I mentioned. In a statement issued by the NDC's communications officer, Sami Jemfi, the party stated that Mr. Kwampa had misspoken on a viral audio clip that bordered on possible reprisals to state-sponsored violence during elections. We have Bobby Banton joining the conversation. He's a lawyer and he joins us. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. When I joined, I thought I was listening to Kwame Nkrumah or Kenneth Kaunda.
It's this country, sometimes maybe it's on the back of the conversation I had with this person yesterday. I think about the country and sometimes I just get desperate, frustrated, but it is well. It is well. I don't know how long you've been following, but I've taken the story about Achu, whose whereabouts are still not clear. Then the call by the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council to downsize government, size of government, and cut cost. And then I was just looking at the NDC's youth organizer in Swami. I'm sure you followed that story. From a legal standpoint, what is your reading of what has happened? Have you seen the video?
I read or I heard you speak about the statement by Sami Jemfi. I think that it's commendable that at least you have the political party trying to let its youth know that even if these things are said in the heat of the political discourse or the campaign, which we will not deny the fact that both political parties have been guilty or will be guilty of such utterances, from Etiwa to all those that had come before, to what we have experienced in the last election. It should not be an official stand of the political party. It should not be seen to be okay, particularly when Parliament actually went a step further to pass a law, which the Vigilantism or something act, something like that.
The Vigilantism Act.
Yeah, and so I am happy with the statement that Sami Jemfi has issued, and I hope that it will serve as a deterrent to other members of that political party and even the MPP that would want to think that they would have the backing of their leaders if they engage in such actions. I mean, Ghana, there's only one Ghana. We don't want to be another example of a country that was doing so well until there was a scramble for power which went out of control. And so every right-meaning Ghanaian should be able to condemn this without any political biases. And it's wrong if it's done by
I couldn't agree with you more, because that's exactly the point I was trying to make. Don't milk this for political gain, because both parties are culpable. You do this all the time. Rather, speak to the issue. Is there evidence to be adduced against the person? Did the person err? Sometimes the court can be merciful based on certain things, because sometimes utterances can be made, but you can see that clearly this person didn't have the intent of carrying it out. Maybe people get passionate. It's like a crime of passion. Sometimes there are concessions that are made because you see, oh, this person was in a certain state where the mind was not working properly. But to come out and make politics out of it is what, annoys me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That I do not expect that the MPP should try and make political meal out of this, because you would find that their members may have, at one instance or the other, made those comments. And so that is why I said I'm very happy that the
NDC is owning up to it.
NDC, yes, officially has made their stand. It's very commendable, and I hope that if the shoe is on the other foot, the MPP will be bold enough to also distance itself from such utterances if it comes out from the mouth of their followers.
Downsizing government, the call by the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. What do you make of it, especially in light of the latest reshuffle? Only one person was reshuffled, really, but the replacements, the elevation, the reshuffle, so to speak, and still our numbers are hovering around the same point. I will keep saying this till something happens. In Malawi, they had about 31 ministers. Lazarus Chakwera brought it down recently to 20-something. What are we waiting for? People have said we can put together so many portfolios. We used to have youth and sports. How about sports and education? Some have said. Why have the differences between defense and interior? There are so many we can lump together. In fact, some propose we can have the regional ministers, and in fact, we can have cabinet ministers, about 16 of them, and they'll double as regional ministers. There are so many. And imagine if we cut even 50 or 60, it's about 110 right now. If we were even to downsize by 70 MPs, do you know what that would mean for the state's coffers in terms of fueling? I know it's not all of them who get fuel now, but in terms of fueling, in terms of all the other perks they get, in terms of their salaries, in terms of other utility allocations, in terms of ex gratia, how much we could save, Bobby. It's crazy.
Well, I think the root of that problem is the refusal by the state apparatus to enforce the provisions of the Political Parties Act. I've always said that when political parties are yearning for power or are clamoring for power, they get, should I say, funded or resourced by ways that are not regulated as the law has provided for. And so once they get this political power, they owe it a duty, whether they will admit or not, to find a way to repay these persons who have supported them when they were looking for political power.
Yeah.
And so it will always provide for creating job avenues in the terms of ministerial appointments or other quasi-state-sponsored positions. Let me put it that way, with all the largesse and the benefit that come from it. When the president took office, he said he justified the size of his government because he said he needed to do some work, and so he needed to focus on certain ministries or certain sectors of the economy. It's been almost 6 years since that has done. Obviously, the present economic situation of the country shows that whatever the government sought to do may not, with that large numbers, may not have yielded the results that he was expected, because from education, from food and agriculture, you cannot hold up to a tangible result. I mean, from where I sit,
right,
that we can specifically say that this result or this this result was as a result of the president dedicating a ministry or a minister to that sector. I have not seen any yet. And so if what you provided as the reason for the numbers in parliament, in government, are not being seen by the citizens, then why keep them? Especially when you come to us to ask us to let go of some of our legal rights because of our financial commitments, the bonds issue, all of those things. And we do not see a compensatory effort by the government to also reduce the expenditure. Because like you have stated, all these largesse, I do not have the figures off my head, but I'm sure that even if it will save the country 10% of its expenses annually, imagine what that 10% can do. It can be used to drill a borehole somewhere in my village.
I mean, the ex-gratia alone, and we've seen the figures at the end of 4 years, that is telling.
That's what I'm saying, that for me, I do not see any reason for this beyond an attempt to reward those that may have supported the political party both ways when they were in opposition. And if we start enforcing that law, where the parties must file their annual returns, must show their source of funding, what have you, and all those things, then everybody will be in check.
Right.
So that we regulate the funding, then they will not be under obligation to reward those that funded them. So I think that we should always look at the source of that problem and solve it. Other than that, we would have, once we elect the executives, and it's a constitutional provision, the president has a right to appoint as many ministers as he wants.
Exactly.
There's no constitutional limitation, and I think that is also a problem.
Let's take a look at this one. In fact, it's the biggest story today in the Daily Graphic. It's their banner headline. It breaks my heart, Bobby. $85 million project abandoned for 12 years due to funding and litigation. Now, it was billed as the country's most luxurious seafront gated community and a destination of choice for high net worth individuals. Reminds me of this place in Venezuela. Anyway, the 17-story La Beach Towers exuded promise of pampered privacy in a mystic Atlantic Ocean setting after an artist's impression of the project was unveiled in 2011. But nearly 12 years on, the highly anticipated sanctuary for luxury home lovers, which sits on a 7-acre seafront, is gradually deteriorating. The $85 million project, which was expected to be completed in 2013, is rotting away as building materials exposed to the sea breeze corrode and wear off. It was supposed to be a plush residential property comprising 64 apartments in all 4 towers, 4 penthouses, and sky villas. It is unclear why the project has halted, but sources say several years of litigation by the major shareholders held back the project, which had been fully sold out by the time it started shooting into the skyline along the La Beach Road. A past president of the Ghana Institution of Engineering, Magnus Kwashi, said a proper audit of the building should be done before work could resume on the project. Mr. Sari suggested that a structural integrity test should be conducted on the building. And by the way, Mr. Maxwell Asari is the head of the Infrastructure Institute in Accra. And he also said that When it was confirmed that the foundation of the project had been weakened, it ought to be pulled down. But the physical planning officer of the Ladade Kotopo Municipal Assembly, Anthony Mompi, refuted suggestions that the building could collapse due to structural integrity. So that is the situation there. But it's so reflective of what we see in our country in terms of governance. This also poses grave danger. I remember reading a similar story, Bobby, some time back. It had to do with this hotel also in the Tema area. I've just forgotten what the name of the hotel was. You may have stumbled upon the story. I think it was the Meridian Hotel. My director, Yao, bringing that to mind. And some of them are death traps. You see people without homes getting in there, sleeping. We don't want another, pardon my using this as an analogy, another Turkey earthquake in Ghana, so to speak. Your thoughts on this?
Well, it's the cost of litigation. When we were in law school, we were told in Chi that Manson a sekru and say lawyer ni bottom. To which litigation only brings the state or the town to its knees, but fills the pocket of lawyers. It's sad. I mean, like you have said, it would have beautified the line. And as you spoke about it, I cast my mind across some of those projects. I readily thought of two around the airport area. One on the airport bypass,
right,
and one that was supposed to have a revolving restaurant.
Yes.
Also.
In fact, that was the first one that came to mind, around the SNIT office, right?
Yes, and those two I know are also in court, and so you'd see that well. It's a private enterprise. The state has no role to play in it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes, the shareholders, for whatever reason, decide to let litigation take control over such an investment. At the end of the day, I was happy that they brought the angle of the municipal assembly, the engineers, the permit holders. And like you said, we should make sure that whatever happens, the state does not lose in terms of a building collapse, people being injured, and all of those.
And that's my point. If this, God forbid, collapses, looking at the location, if let's say a road is affected, damaged, and people can't use it, if some private property suffers any damage, if some individuals die, then there's a problem. So the infrastructure people are there, the engineers are looking at it and all of that, which is all good. But in this country, we know we can do all of this and then we go to sleep again. So hopefully they do a good job. And if the structural integrity of the building has been compromised, it means, and if it requires being razed to the ground, or this is someone's investment, so you can't just talk about it like that. If some things must be done to keep the structure up, how are we going to go about it? If it must be raised to the ground for public safety, I mean, it must be done. We don't have to wait till disaster strikes.
Yeah, and I hope that by bringing, because I mean, it's the first time that I think the story is coming up like this, the media space. So I hope that the shareholders will take a cue and at least, do whatever they must do to make sure that the building sees completion. It's a beautiful project. And I just hope that it doesn't remain like this for forever.
I don't know what the process has got to in terms of court, but maybe, who knows, maybe ADR might work in this respect. People try it as an alternative. I don't know. But anyway, moving on from there, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, at investing in Africa mining in Daba, make Ghana your investment destination, Jinapo, to foreign investors in mining. That's the lands minister. Are you still missing after Turkey earthquake? That's the question. And NACOC destroys cannabis worth 50 million Ghana cedis. And publication of COVID-19 expenditure audit premature. That's according to the AG. I want your take on these two, and I'll just take a quick swipe at the stories. The Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, has described the publication of the special audit on government's COVID-19 expenditure by the Auditor General as premature. He has demanded a withdrawal of the report from the public domain until debated and sanctioned by Parliament in line with constitutional requirement. Quote, a prior publication of the Auditor General's report completely undermines the purpose and meaning of Article 187, 5 and 6 of the Constitution and should not be encouraged. Consequently, I advise a withdrawal of the report on the government's COVID-19 transactions from your website before same has been debated by Parliament and considered by the appropriate committee of Parliament. I found this interesting based on technicalities. There's also on page 24, so you can just address both of them together. About 50,000 kilograms of cannabis with the street value of about 50 million Ghana cedis was yesterday destroyed by the Narcotics Control Commission. The exercise, which took place at the Bundase military training camp in the Ningo Prampram district of the Greater Accra region, also involved officials from the court, police, military environmental protection agency, Ghana Standards Authority, and international partners from Drug Enforcement Administration, National Crime Agency. The cannabis was seized from suspects between 2021 and January 2023 and destroyed following a court order. My only hope, and I'm not casting aspersions, my only hope is that all of it was burnt. Those two stories for your reflection, sir. You know, we've had, narcotics turn to kukunte in this country before. So, Ghana man, we all make steady. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when I hear stories of seized cannabis being burnt, and especially with that value, I ask myself, so couldn't the state have benefited from it?
That's an interesting angle.
Yeah, because there are some industries that use the cannabis.
True.
So if the state has seized it, 50 million Ghana cedis.
Right.
If it's sold at a reduced value to 40 million, 40 million Ghana cedis, the state finds an industry that buys cannabis for medicinal purposes. Why can't the state sell it? Unless maybe by the time the court maybe had stored it, it had lost its medicinal value or something. But if we can come up with a policy that will let the state benefit from some of these things. So, for example, if a state seizes a property that was acquired from illegal trade, the state doesn't raise it down. The state applies it for
exactly.
So why can't we find a use cannabis when we want to go and burn 50? It's as if we are burning 50 million cedis cash.
And
I think that if they look hard enough, they will be able to find use for these things.
I think sometimes it's the mistrust in the system, just as I am not so... I mean, we should be able to get to the point where, you know, if they say 50,000 kilograms, it was exactly 50,000 kilograms. Recently, we had a report about one of the state agencies. I don't know whether it was customs or the GRA or something of the sort. And someone who was supposed to be in custody of some CFA, the money, Yabutu, the money had died, disappeared all of a sudden. So I think those are some of the challenges. But I am in agreement with you, because if it's going to be used, maybe we don't have those systems. I mean, there are drugs that use cannabinoids and others, you know, cannabis in different forms. And that is what maybe we should be exploiting. But even if not within our country, how about our region? And even if not here, even if it's going to cost us, let's say, $5 million to transport it to some other Western country, and we're going to rake in a lot of money on the back of it through legitimate means, because in the West, there are many uses of this, and they have it, some for recreational purposes, other for other purposes. Could we have done with it with some money into the state's kitty, maybe even to fund NACOC and its activities? Exactly. But the point is the mistrust. That is what I keep saying. We've not built a society on trust, so there'll be a lot of mistrust about where it ends up, how much it accrues, and all of that. Maybe they're just trying to avoid that.
Well, it's attempting to put together a policy and the right persons. I think that is a better way to solve the problem than just taking the lazy approach of, say, let's ban it because we don't trust anybody. I mean, we believe that Ghanaians have highly resourced persons in terms of their knowledge and understanding. If we put the right structures, the right policies, and we are very conscious about it, we just don't have to play politics with it, I think, and that's about it. And if we have a state entity that is resourced to do this, it should be transparent enough. Maybe have parliamentary oversight, the Ministry of Defense, Foreign Affairs, Finance, put together such a policy. We should be able to make use of some of these monies
we should be able to do that. Just as I also felt it was a bit absurd to be burning excavators. You see, same policy, mistrust in the system. So you apprehend someone delving in Galamsey. How much are these excavators? What damage has the person done to the environment by selling them or using them for something else that is of benefit to the state? At least we'll get something back. But in this instance, it goes up in flames and the state gets nothing. But we also know that excavators have grown wings and flown back to their owners. So you see, that's the mistrust in the system.
The state even ends up being ordered by a court to pay compensation for burning people's excavators. That was an eyesore. It was completely illegal and unnecessary. But
Bobby, we have just a minute, so let's do this. Daily Guide, it reflects some other stories we've taken a look at, but put down guns, Minister to Boku Youth, that's on page 6. And Dominic Nitiwo, Minister for Defense, has appealed to the youth engaged in violent conflict in Boku to cease using violence and lay down their weapons while soliciting the cooperation of members of parliament to promote peace in the area. According to him, over 30 people have died as a result of the Boku conflict since December 2022, noting, quote, Boku is not what we used to know 3 years ago. There's also Agrada dragged to court over nude pictures. And in the Finder newspaper, U.S. initiative to drive industry, Ghanaian startups in climate technology and innovation space to benefit. So Ghana's entrepreneurial and business landscape is set for a major boost thanks to a United States government support and partnership initiative. Dubbed Partnership Opportunity Delegations, an initiative of the U.S. Department of State's Office of Global Partnerships, a 16-member delegation made up of representatives of U.S. companies and organizations focused on climate technology and innovation is in Ghana to engage businesses, startups, and policymakers to understand Ghana's dynamic entrepreneurial potential and delve deeper into partnerships and investment opportunities. I would have you reflect solely on the put down guns by the minister in some 30 seconds, and we can go, Bobby.
Well, the conflict in Boko, it's very interesting. I have had the opportunity of spending some time in that part of the country, and they are very nice people. Very nice. I don't understand why or how. And then, whether we like it or not, if we take politics out of that conflict, it will be resolved in a day. And I think that we need both political parties to be very upfront and honest with each other and sit down to solve it. For me, it's as simple as that. Otherwise, we'll go around in circles. Yeah. If we take politics out of it, we can solve that problem.
And I perfectly understand what you're saying. But Bobby, thank you so much for doing us the honors this morning.
And before you go, I wanted to touch on the Auditor General. Just to,
So you have 20 seconds, very briefly on that.
Okay, so I'll just read Article 1877, which the Auditor General always relies on. In the performance of his functions under this Constitution, the Auditor General shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person.
How did I know you were going to go there? Bobby Manson, I think you've made your point. There's no need to even say anything about this. You've made your point.
That's all.
Yeah, that's it. We're a guy.
Thank you very much, man.
Bobby Manson is a lawyer. He joined us this morning. Exactly my thinking on this matter, but Bobby has said it for me. The news review is brought to you courtesy Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. You can locate us in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade, and Aji Estate in Tema Community 22, Techiman Hansua, Isiama in Enzema. Call us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Expect sports up next and hopefully some more detail on Christian Achu. We pray for him. Sports up next.
Hello there, welcome to the sports segment with me, Razak Musbah. Well, after many years without sports policy, the country is on the verge of finalizing one with the objective of developing the sports sector. The Sports Minister, Mustafa Yusuf, met stakeholders yesterday to solicit input on the draft national sports policy.
Today's event is a manifestation of the direction and focus of my administration in establishing a sustainable and targeted strategies for the development of sports in its entirety. I'm very, very grateful to you all for taking time off your busy schedule to come here for this very important and historic chapter we have embarked on. We are indeed thankful and grateful, and we are also very certain that with a huge repertoire of knowledge and experience, this draft document will be enhanced and enriched so that at the end we will achieve our objective for establishing the committee that has come out with the draft. When the document is published, we can all identify with it and come together to work towards its success. As the purpose of this meeting and the document has indicated, and my Chief Director just mentioned why we are here, the consultation and the draft document, please feel free to feed into it and bring your thoughts, ideas to make this document really ours and to direct our focus and attention to achieve the dream and the wishes we have always imagined and we had for sports of our dear country. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Ghana has been in dear need of policy direction for the development of sports in our country. The absence of the sports policy or program to inform sports development and sports for development is a dent in our sports journey, considering the international reputation of our athletes have built for our nation in various sporting disciplines.
Well, let's talk about handball because Ghana is set to host the 2023 Zone 3 edition of the International Handball Federation for under 17 and under 19 girls in Accra. The Handball Association of Ghana inaugurated a 10-member local organizing committee for the event. Here is the association's president, Neil Lante Bannerman.
I'm particularly excited because I know that Ghana for a very long time has been yearning to host this particular tournament. It's a developmental program. That's why it's for the under 17s and under 19s. And this time around, it's going to be an all-female tournament. And I know the inherent nature of Ghanaians. We are hospitable and we can deliver. I know very much so that this particular program is going to open other doors for us to get other tournaments to host. It's not going to be juvenile programs, but to have an African tournament to host. It depends on how we handle it. As we get to be inaugurated as a local organizing committee, I would want to urge everyone that will be mentioned to put his or her shoulders to the cause, so that at the end of the day we'll be able to deliver and deliver well. I believe in the adage that the end justifies the means. We might be small now, but I'm very sure by the time our term of office will be up, Ghana handball will be bigger than it is now.
That's Real Madrid playing the finals with Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia. Now let's get to Germany and get in touch with my colleague with DWTV, Chris Harrington. Chris, good to see you again. I mean, let's talk about Bayern Munich because they will face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League next week. But there's been some news on Mbappe's fitness that Bayern apparently are not believing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, the news came out about Mbappe not being available for the first tie on February 14th. And basically, Julian Nagelsmann in a press conference prior to this recent Bundesliga match day, accused PSG of playing poker. Basically, PSG announced that Mbappe would miss up to 3 weeks with a thigh injury, which would rule him out, for Valentine's Day massacre or whatever you want to label PSG versus Bayern Munich in the French capital. But Nagelsmann said he doesn't think he'll be out. He doesn't know what he's got, but he assumed he's playing, and the game plan will be as such. But the PSG coach responded, and he said that he read what Nagelsmann said, and he said playing mind games, that's not his style, not his at all. Mbappe has been invaluable offensively, scored over 20 goals, over a handful in the Champions League, and he's expected to miss a few key fixtures. So obviously we have to wait and see what happens, but it could set the stage for a possible return fixture back in Germany that could possibly welcome the return of Sadio Mane. So that could be a very interesting encounter. We have to wait and see what happens next week. My instinct tells me that, hey, why would you go against the coach? What kind of stupid mind game would he be playing? If Mbappe's injured, he's injured. And we have to wait and see how Bayern responds. But that's all, just a little bit back and forth, a bit of smoke before the fire to come.
It's a bit about Manuel Neuer because, following the interview he granted, there was a bit of back and forth with the team. And we understand German grades, Matos, is calling for Manuel Neuer to be stripped of the captaincy. I mean, what's happening in there?
Yeah, I did talk about Manuel Neuer, in his kind of off-the-cuff comments, his unauthorized tell-all interviews with media outlets that have kind of outraged Bayern brass. Well, one former football great, Lothar Matthäus, has called for Manuel Neuer to be stripped of his captaincy with Bayern Munich. And I don't know if that's a right decision or wrong decision, but it would make sense. I mean, you don't know how long this man will be sidelined. There's been mixed reviews about his medical status. And he hasn't been very captain-like. The one captain-like mentality I'd like to see is the vice captain, Joshua Kimmich. I mean, it's a fitting, vice captain. I think he should be captain. He is the anchor in the middle, and he's been an iron man in terms of being on the pitch, contributing the most minutes despite the recent red card. But Manuel Neuer, I don't know, what's up with him, but he should be setting a better example, I think. Obviously, you want to speak your mind, and you're free to do that as an individual, but you do have to keep in mind when you're representing something greater than yourself, you should be cautious with what you say. And I'm sure will be the conversation Bayern had with Manuel Neuer. And a few other things about Bayern Munich. I didn't mention this earlier in the week, but a 19-year-old is leading their offense. Jamal Musiala now has 10 goals on the season. That's the most of any Bayern player. And he has 6 assists on the season. That's the most of any Bayern player. Is that a good or bad thing? I wonder, should a 19-year-old be the most prolific offensive player on Bayern Munich? I don't think so. But salute to Jamal Musiala for that recent milestone of reaching 10 goals.
And big salute to you too, Chris, and thanks so much for all of that update. That's all we have for you in AM Sports. With me, Razak Musbah. There's more on the AM show this day.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories. And the very first, we continue our conversation on what's happened in Parliament since the House resumed its sittings. Now, yesterday, the House deliberated on issues regarding or in respect of the new CI the Electoral Commission wants to introduce. It was a split. The CI makes the Ghana card the sole document for identification acceptable to enroll onto the voters' register. There's been a back and forth between both sides of the House. The minority leader, Dr. Kasilato Forson, says the NDC is still opposed to a new constitutional instrument the Electoral Commission is seeking to lay in the House. The majority side, led by Osechi Mensah-Botu, says if the new CI is not approved in time, the EC will not be able to conduct the district level elections later this year. We've got this plus other issues on our table this morning. Our guest, Al-Hassan Suini, he's Member of Parliament, Tamale North. Mr. Suini, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother. Hope you're well.
I'm very well.
Right.
I'm very well. And since I mentioned Tamale, we've spoken to a lot of, so we've had Tamale Central, we've had Tamale North, and
Tamale South.
Tamale South, I think. We've been interacting with a lot of the members of parliament in that area. It just hits me.
Okay.
How is Tamale North?
Alhamdulillah, it's doing well.
When was the last time you were there?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. And in terms of the needs of the constituency, what are your roads like, your hospitals? What is infrastructure like in Tamale North? Tamale is a bustling, city, but you also have your issues, right? What's the reality in your constituency?
Well, infrastructure deficit, just like most part of this country, is high. Roads can be better. Tamale North, it's a mix of urban Tamale and a bit of rural Tamale, if you like. So you have parts of Tamale North with some level of appreciable infrastructure. For example, you have roads in some parts of the constituency. If you take the Tamale Polytechnic area, now Tamale University, Technical University area, the Chogu Runabout, it's an old road all the way to the Holy Cross area, Meridian Hotel area. I mean, those roads are good. The Saka quarters into Snett Flats area, around the regional coordinating council, there are some good roads. But inside the communities like Ward K, like Canville, like even Chogu itself, the community roads are deplorable, and the drainage situation is also very terrible. The biggest one being around the Garba Lodge area, which has been in the news for very bad reasons, especially during the rainy season when it gets flooded.
Which currently, I'm sure the members of that community are not looking forward to the rainy season, because when it comes,
absolutely,
it could be spell trouble for them.
It's always a problem when the rainy season comes. But fortunately for us, that drain goes all the way to the Snett Flats area, a community known as Fo. It separates Fo from Taha. Fortunately, with some, engagements, the drain around Fo is being constructed. In some cases, I mean, in the past especially, it was so bad that in the raining season, sometimes the Taha community got cut off from the urban Tamale because of the poor drainage system. I mean, because of the poor state that the drain is in. But currently, there's work being done there, and some massive improvement is going to be noticed after the work. And I'm hoping that they will finish before the rainy season. When you say
there's work being done there, by which entity?
By the government, of course, and it's
I wanted to know specifically. Is it?
Yeah, like I said, as a result of engagement, the government is, constructing that drain in a very massive way, and I'm happy about that development, because it's going to provide some sort of ease. But I've said that in the area of health, I think it's even in the news, especially local, websites, in the area of health, that as a member of parliament, with all humility, I have performed better than the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government when it comes to providing infrastructure in the Tamale North constituency. For example, in the last couple of years, through engagements, we have been able to construct about 3 new, clinics in Ward K, one in Ward K, one also in Balahe. We also have one in Fo. We have also refurbished almost all existing chip compounds in their constituency and equip them with, what they will require to provide healthcare for the people. In the area of education, we've also done our bit by way of supporting the construction of 6 classroom blocks, 3-unit classroom blocks across the constituency. We have renovated existing ones as well and provided furniture to many schools in the area. We have also supported people who are aspiring for higher education, especially tertiary level. Only about a couple of weeks ago when I was there, we saw to the payment of the admission fees of all students who had admission to pursue medical courses, nursing, community health nursing, and all the other health courses like laboratory technicians and all of that. We paid full admission fees for all the students that applied to us. So we are doing our bit, and we enjoy the support of the people, and we thank God for that. And we hope that with time and with the support of all those who think that our efforts are worthy of support, we will continue to do some more.
Let's talk about schools. Recently in Bandai in the northern region, we put up that documentary which exposed the fact that many of these schools were without desks. The deficit was about 7,000, and that story, though the education minister didn't like it, now 5,000 desks have been sent to that part of the country. Very briefly on that, school infrastructure. Just this morning in the KJB area, we saw schools dilapidated, terrible, and that's where pupils have to study. What's the state of the schools in Tamale North? Do you have any schools under trees? Do you have any schools with such deficits? What's it like?
It's terrible, and that is why I've made it a point to prioritize education and health, and also skills development, and women empowerment.
Right.
I think that education, like I've always said to my constituents, is a leveler. It is one that guarantees that a man without a title's child can also become equal to the child of a very prominent person. And that is why it is important that we invest in the education of our children. So I have made it one of my 4 priority areas in the constituency. And if you speak to the education director, he will tell you that the interventions that we have made in renovating existing schools and providing, furniture to some of the schools is commendable. But the deficits remains. You still have a number of schools, especially we have a couple of Arabic schools that also support. They are adapted by the GES, and so they run the Arabic course and also the Orthodox, education. But unfortunately, they don't get the attention that they deserve from the Ghana Education Service, especially in the distribution and supply of teaching learning materials and even infrastructure. So it is a big issue. There are 2, for example, that together with an NGO I facilitated for them to construct 3 class unit blocks, for one in Kalpohene and the other in Kamvli, known as Zamzamia. And these schools also deserve the attention of the Ghana Education Service, because they provide learning grounds. They serve as learning grounds for the young ones. So the issue in Tamale North is not different from many problems that you see in other parts of the country. The schools need their infrastructure improved. They need more classroom blocks. They need more furniture. They also need more teaching and learning materials. I did say that a couple of weeks ago when I was there, we supported the tertiary students who had admission into tertiary schools to pursue health courses. On that same day, we handed over a 3-unit classroom block that was constructed through my engagement with another non-governmental organization. We renovated that 6-unit classroom block of that same school, right, as the Fo Zion, school, and that I hope is going to improve education in that area. Right. But those are, I have always said, like little drops, in a mighty ocean of need, and so the government with bigger muscles should be seen more frontal in addressing some of these issues. And when I watched your documentary the other time, I just felt a little awkward about our politics in this country, because I recall that when His Excellency the Vice President was running to become president with Nana Akufo-Addo, you recall that he went to the Upper East region and donated some furniture to schools because he thought that it was an undesirable situation to find pupils in that school lying on their bellies. And one would have thought that having become vice president, if for nothing at all, he would have prioritized such issues. But 6 years down the line, to take Joy FM to highlight, the issues again, which even got the Minister of Education upset, but at least got him to take action, is quite, for me, awkward, especially when you think that politics is about.
So it is clear that we've had some of these schools in the system throughout the Fourth Republic. We've had schools under trees. We've had schools in terribly dilapidated states, and we have come far. Yeah. But I was just looking at, actually, that is my area. Okay, the KJB area. We highlighted it today when we brought up those schools. And I looked at that place and I was asking myself, so the next Bernice Abubeidu Lances, Evans Menses, Blessed Sugas and the rest, if this is where they are starting, how do they become those ace broadcasters? How do they become the next presidents? How do they become? Obviously, we're not being fair to these children. Comparatively, our education, I think the HCI and then the human development indexes and all of that, over the years, it's been tanking. We've been falling in terms of the rankings. And all of this feeds into it. So I was just asking myself, you want these children to grow up and become something, to add on to society. And this is the start. And the basics are the most crucial, the most important part. And look at how we are treating them. So as for that issue, only time will tell. We have less than 20 minutes, but I have a number of issues that I want us to look at. So let's get down to it. Maybe bite-sized answers will be good so that we can exhaust them. Let's talk about the new CI that the EC is hoping to lay before Parliament. Your two sides, the minority and the majority, are not in agreement on the way forward. The EC has been categorical that this will only affect continuous registration. Okay, it's not the compilation of a new voters register. The EC has been clear on that. Dr. Sirebo Kwaku has been speaking on that. But what is your fundamental issue in respect of the Ghana card? After all, we're all supposed to have it.
Well, fundamentally, the NDC is not opposed to us using the Ghana card as a source document when it comes to registering for the purpose of elections or voting. We are not fundamentally opposed to it. We only have highlighted the fact that from the data of the NIA itself, most Ghanaians do not have the national identification card, and it is not through their fault. It is,
are you saying most Ghanaians don't?
Many Ghanaians. Let me say many Ghanaians.
But not most.
Many Ghanaians.
Because at least, even from last year, the last time I checked with the numbers, quite a lot of Ghanaians, if I'm not mistaken, about 16 million, had latched onto it. And there was about 4 or 5 million
what is
in
our
terms
population?
of a deficit.
And what is our population?
But it's not everyone who is registering at a go. You know that, right? There are age categories. We've been registering according to age categories. That's why at a point, even children who had been born to a certain age were not registered.
It is not a debate. I mean, I'm just saying that most or many...
It's not the entirety of the population.
I'm just saying that most or many is not entirely wrong if you are going to compare it to
No, I was just saying that if you're going to use most and you use the catchment groups, then I don't think it's being fair. But when you look at...
I am saying that I didn't
numbers,
categorize any group.
Right.
I didn't. I just said that based on the data, most Ghanaians, and you said most, I said many. I don't know why we are debating.
The point is, it's not all 31 million Ghanaians who are registering at a go.
Well, but I'm saying that if you say according to the data, most. And you said most, I said many, but you still want to litigate it. I don't know what the purpose is, but we can move on.
Let's look at the catchment area. I'm sure you want to focus on, which is
you are interested.
Which is voters,
yes,
right? That's your catchment area.
But the point.
What is your concern?
The point is not. The point shouldn't be lost. That what we have observed is that many Ghanaians do not have the national identification card, and that is from the data of the National Identification Authority. And it is not through their fault. It is not through their fault. In some cases, they go very early in the morning, forgo work in some cases, join queues, get their data taken, but don't have their cards issued to them. And many of these people are of voting age. And so if you make it the only requirement to register people for the purpose of voting, you are unfairly going to deny, people 18 years and above who through no fault of theirs do not have the Ghana card, the opportunity to be registered as voters. And that is unconstitutional. So why will you want to use a document that is not readily available and readily accessible by many Ghanaians as the only source document for the purpose of registering people for votes, when you have alternatives? When in the past you have used those alternatives and it has served our Fourth Republic better. What is with this Ghana card that you, the state, have not been able to roll out without any, difficulties? That you want it to be the only document used for continuous registration. So that is our point of disagreement with the Electoral Commission. And
so basically you feel this is going to disenfranchise some people?
Obviously. I mean, it is very obvious. And unless what I'm saying hasn't been reported by your media house, that people have gone to the NIA, have done all that they are supposed to do as responsible citizens, but do not have the national identification card. Unless you haven't reported it. If you have, and I believe you have, you will know that then it will be unfair to such persons if it is made, if the Ghana card is made the only requirement for continuous registration.
Tell me something. Do you feel, in a way, it is targeted at at people who are likely to vote for your party? Do you feel, for example, that in this instance, those who would likely vote for the NDC would be more affected? Is there any? Because I've heard such, discussions in the past. Do you toe that line?
Such a mindset will be defeating. We should be lovers of democracy, not just by word, but also by deed. It should not matter who a voter will vote for. What is important is to make it eligible, or make the voter eligible, and make it easy for the voter to make himself eligible to vote. And so, even if it were going to affect people who will vote for the New Patriotic Party, our position should not be different.
What is right, and what must be done must be done.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kweku of the Electoral Commission mentions that this seeks to cure, not to eliminate Ghanaians, but to eliminate non-Ghanaians and minors by using the Ghana card. What do you make of that?
I didn't get the question, please.
Dr. Kweku is saying that this CI, part of what it's going to cure, would be to take out non-Ghanaians and minors. And of course, that's why I was bringing in the categories. I think you didn't get me from the outset. The categorizations of those who are securing the Ghana card. And he makes the point that to eliminate minors from registering, and you know the age categorization, and to eliminate non-Ghanaians from registering, this Ghana card is the best way to go. How do you think that compares to some of the other national identification cards that we have?
Well, once again, let me repeat that fundamentally, the National Democratic Congress is not against the use of the Ghana card as a document for registering people for election purposes. We are not.
Okay.
And so there's no disagreement with what Dr. Kwaku has said. But not until we get to a point where you can stand out and beat your chest and say that every Ghanaian who wants the Ghana card has it or can get it. It will be unfair. It will be unconstitutional.
But if you look at the rollover, the numbers, the add-ons, and the promises that have been made, I'm sure at the tail end of last year you heard when the EC made its commitments and then the NIA also came in at a point to say that, look, we're working according to, we don't have any fixed timelines. But later, the NIA, Professor Atefua came and said, we're working with the EC to ensure that everyone who should have a card will get it before the registration processes kickstart, so that everyone who is eligible can vote. Don't you take assurance in that? Don't you think that means everyone who is eligible to vote will get it ahead of election 2024? Does that not give you confidence?
How many assurances have not been, lived up to its fulfillment from the National Identification Authority that you know of? Many. And apart from that, it is again unfair to put a timeline on the National Identification Registration process, because the National Identification Authority is not by law mandated to register people for the purposes of voting. They are just to register Ghanaians and people living in Ghana. And so why do you give them timelines? That should be in sync with the Electoral Commission's timeline. Let them do their work. Give them the funding that they are required, the funding that they require to do their work. And let the Electoral Commission also do its work progressively in line with the improvements that we see in the system. Why do you want to tie it together? And then this point about the categorization. My point was that I did not do any categorization. I just spoke to the fact that the data from the National Identification Authority shows that many Ghanaians, or most Ghanaians, depending on the way you look at it, because even the 16 million that you talk about is not made up of only Ghanaians. And if you have a population of over 30 million people, 16 million that is not entirely Ghanaian, I don't know why you still want to litigate the most or many. That's like nitpicking. That's like nitpicking. You haven't. You made reference to it again. That's nitpicking.
I was correcting something, so to speak, because it had to do with age categorization, like Dr. Kweku mentioned. Yeah. But it's something we can get past. No need to browbeat over that matter. Let's talk about your new leadership in Parliament. You've had a reshuffle. Interestingly, we saw a number of reactions to that reshuffle, but now that reshuffle, so to speak, has stood. And Dr. Kasiela Toforson is your new leader. He's in the last few days been speaking. In fact, he's spoken on this very matter. We've been discussing the CI and all of that. What's your reaction? What's your take on your party's new leadership? The processes involved have been questioned, but for you, where do you stand? And what do you think this does for the NDC side Does it strengthen you? Does it weaken you? Are you together on this matter?
Yes, I mean, now we are together on this matter. I mean, in the beginning.
Now you are together.
Absolutely. I mean, it will be. I'll be remiss to say that it was all kosher. I mean, it is obvious that in the beginning we were not together, and that is what led to about 71 members of parliament or on our side petitioning the Council of Elders to look at it. So we were not together in the beginning.
Were you one of them?
Yes, I was, and I am happy that at the end,
because I actually saw lists with your name and you subscribing to, but you know, some of these things you must hear from the horse's own mouth. And because we spoke to some of these people and they even said, no, I didn't sign up to this. So I just had to ask that question.
No, I get it. Yeah. So I was one of the people. But the point is that now we are all together, and at the last meeting that was held with the party leadership together with the Council of Elders, the entire caucus, pledged its support behind the new leadership. And it was demonstrated last Tuesday when we walked into the chamber and sat behind the new leadership. And Dr. Keselatu Forson, made his speech on the floor as leader of the minority group and got a standing ovation from the caucus at the end of the day. And that for me should spell, it should point to some prospects in the future for the party. Because clearly, if you listen to the reservations that came after the party announced the change in leadership, it was not about the capacity or the capabilities of these people who were chosen. They are colleagues that we have been in parliament with, and we know their worth and we know their abilities. And so nobody questioned their capacity to lead the caucus. But it was all about, the processes, the engagements, and what have you. And I monitored the discussions, and I noticed that there was a lot of misunderstanding about the position that was taken by the about 71 members who petitioned the Council of Elders.
So but briefly clarify for us.
Yes, but you see, in the end, what is important is that the Council of Elders and the party leadership understood what the issues were, and I'll just maybe share a paragraph or two with you. A paragraph or two from the release that was issued by the Council of Elders after meetings. Yes. It says that the Council of Elders acknowledges the leadership, and no, that's not the one I want to share. I want to just, go to, let me just a minute. Okay, it's here. It says, while recognizing that the party leadership was within its rights to make appointments or rotate the leadership of the NDC caucus in Parliament, as has been the case since the inception of the Parliament of the Fourth Republic, the Council is of the view that the processes need to be improved. Accordingly, the Council noted that in the instant case, the approach, 1, level of consultation, 2, timing, 3, as well as the mode, 4, and manner of notifying the affected persons could have been better.
Okay.
And these were the issues that the 71, had. And it has been agreed to by the council that they were worthy of looking at. And because of that, the council has implored the, MPs and the leadership of the party to begin discussions on a framework that will guide guide future decisions.
So in future we can hope to avoid some of these.
We hope we can.
But speaking of your reshuffle, on the majority side, the government side, there's been a bit of a reshuffle. Some say it's not a reshuffle. Some academics contest that, but others say it is a reshuffle, even if it's one person. There's only one person who has really been reshuffled, Herbert Krapper, I think. But there are the 4 individuals coming in and that one elevation. When you look at the new appointees or nominees, so to speak, Brian Achampong for Agric, Kobina Tahiru Hammond for Trades and Industry, with his deputy being now Dr. Stephen Amwa, Sticker. When you look at the dynamics in the some Asabi coming in now, Asamoah Boateng, what is your quick reflection? And I want you to tie that into this bit. Downsized government, cut costs, Pentecostal and charismatic council. When you look at this purported reshuffle, your colleague, Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utum, Dr. Dixon Adumagu Kisi, told me just about yesterday or 2 days ago that this was just the start, that from what he has heard, there would be more by way of a reshuffle. What are your expectations in that regard?
I don't have any expectations, unfortunately, because this government hasn't only sunk. Unfortunately, they have sunk with our economy and with all of us in it. And I don't have any hope that any injury time player can make any dramatic changes to the state of our country today. So I think it is much ado about nothing. It is just going to be an opportunity for people to also have their name on the playlist.
Really? Kobina Tahiru Hammond served under Kufuor, I think, 2005 to 2009. He's been a minister before. Brian Achampong has been a minister of state twice, different portfolios. These people coming in are not new faces. They are not people who have actually not served before. So when you say that, you feel it's just people coming in to maybe benefit in some way. What do you
I didn't say that. I just said that there's people coming in to have their name on the playlist.
Okay.
I didn't say that they are coming to benefit in any way.
What do you mean by
but yes, they are going to come in and I'm happy for some of them because at least if for nothing at all, their CVs will improve. But
you're happy but their CVs will improve.
Absolutely. I mean, their CVs will improve.
Like which ones?
I mean, those who have never served as ministers will now have it as former ministers when they eventually leave government in 2024. Right. So their CVs will improve by that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Asabi, has he served before?
Yeah, he's been a minister of information before.
Chieftaincy
when I was a journalist, he was a very popular minister of information then.
Right.
Yeah, so for those of them who have never been, their CVs will improve for nothing at all.
Dr. Stephen Amwa is a first time.
And I think K.T. Hammond was a deputy minister. He wasn't a minister of state. Now he's a minister of state. That's to his credit. So at the personal level, I'm happy for some of them. But I'm saying that no injury player can make any dramatic changes to the state that we find ourselves in. And that is why I am very indifferent about who gets in and who gets out.
Let's just wrap on that. But I want us to focus on a key ministry, Trades and Industry. We all know 1D1F, major flagship program and all of that. When you look at the pairing, K.T. Hammond, Dr. Stephen Amwa, I will ask, do you have any expectations? Some have said both of them are firebrands. How are they going to work and all of that? But looking at what they give out in Parliament, what can you expect from your colleagues, though they are on the other side?
Well, again, I will say that I don't expect much, anything positive.
You're very pessimistic about all this.
It may not be their fault. It is just because it is too late, too little in the day for anybody to make any, dramatic intervention to our state. Because the president and his, vice president and his economic management team have simply taken us to our lowest point ever in the history of the Fourth Republic. They are going down as the worst, government that we have ever had in the Fourth Republic. Never before have we had to pay so much for basic things. Never before have we had to do a debt restructuring that is leading to people losing their savings and their investments. Never before have we had unemployment, in double digits in the Fourth Republic. Youth unemployment over 30%. Never before have people been so despondent, like people are today. And so I pity those who are going to get into government now because no matter how brilliant or how smart they are, their efforts, unfortunately, will not amount to to match. And with KT Hammond and Sticker, I said it yesterday, I was on Metro TV, Good Morning Ghana, that the two of them, yes, are erratic, and I don't mean it as an insult. It is just a description of the way they approach things. And so many people expect that they may not be able to, work together in harmony.
Do you think differently?
At that ministry? I will wait and see. I will adopt the wait and see approach.
All right, let's quickly look at this as well. It would be remiss on my part to not bring it up. Your Swami organizer, NDC's organizer there, I don't know whether it's a youth organizer, correct me if I'm wrong, and his comments that a lot of people have found very distasteful. The video has gone round, allegations have been made. Richard Ahiamba, communications director of the MPP, came out and said this person did not misspeak and that your party is known for this. This is what he represents and this is your party. But tellingly, we've had the communications director, the mouthpiece of your party, Sami Jemfi, also come and say the system should be lenient with him and that this was not in the best of taste. How do you react to that? Because now fingers are being pointed at you as being violent and that you're planning on sowing violence in 2024.
His words, yes, are condemnable. But really, what is his capacity compared to the words of Kennedy Agyapong before the 2008 general elections? And his capacity? He was on his radio station and he called for guns, and I don't even want to repeat it. You remember?
I do.
And what was the reaction of the New Patriotic Party then when he was picked up by the police? Now compare Kennedy Agyapong's capacity and even the words he used to the words of this gentleman in Kumasi and his capacity to carry out really what he said.
And that was something I discussed earlier with Bobby Bunsen, a lawyer, that look. In reality, in law, you would look at intent and you would look at the capacity of the person to do it. But at the same time, you cannot overlook he's an organizer in the constituency. Sometimes a little spark is all it takes. We've seen it in other jurisdictions.
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm just pointing to the double standards that, sometimes irk me in our politics. I mean, for the New Patriotic Party communications director to organize a press conference on that matter and forget where we are coming from smacks of high level of hypocrisy. When they, vandalize the, police equipment and mobilize on the streets for worse only a couple of years ago. So for him to hold a press conference, and like I started by saying that the words of the youth organizer in the Ashanti region are condemnable. But for the New Patriotic Party, in these desperate times, to ignore what is happening in Mboku, where every expert says it has the potential of, leading into terrorist groups, taking advantage of the situation and destabilizing this country. For the New Patriotic Party communications director not to hold a press conference to call on the security agencies to deal with that threat and to find it worthy, to find the Ashanti regional guys' comments worthy of a press conference, is to say the least.
Okay, so just to wrap on that point.
You won't even let me say the list.
But actually, I'm even being prompted that our time is up. That's why I have to.
Yeah,
so the calls have been made for the law to take its course as far as he is concerned. Your communications director is pleading for clemency, leniency with him. We've spoken about capacity. But as a party, what are you going to do about the situation? And in such instances, what do you do?
Well, I am very confident that by now the gentleman has already been, spoken to intensely by leadership of the party in the Ashanti region and beyond. I'm sure that he's been cautioned, but I mean, let's face it. In this country, when the political temperature is high, people have said worse things, and people may continue to say worse things. That will not justify what this gentleman has said. But I am saying that there are real, issues that threaten our peace and our stability that are being ignored or not handled, appropriately. Those are the issues that should get our attention. And I am very confident that the National Democratic Congress will deal with its recalcitrant members and urge them to focus on ensuring that we protect the ballot. Yes, even if it has to be at the peril of our life, we need to do so. And saying that even at the cost of our lives is not, a threat to our stability and our peace. It's actually, in my view, a constitutional duty, because we are enjoined by the Constitution to even at the peril of our lives, protect the Constitution. And that is not to say that when you declare to protect, the Constitution at the peril of your life, you are calling for war. In the same way, when you declare to defend your party's position and to defend your party's right, to take part in an election that is free and fair, it doesn't amount to calling for war. It doesn't amount to threatening the peace of this country. We need to understand that.
Thank you so much, Al-Hassan Suede. It's interesting because the very next conversation we're having also focuses on Boku, and it also focuses on the Tamale area in terms of NEDCO staff on strike. So maybe you might want to catch on what is going to happen there. But Al-Hassan Suede, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, and he joined us for this conversation. Once more, thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Do stay with us, because up next, we're going to the northern region and we're going to hear from the NEDCO staff and exactly what is happening there. We're also going to give you the latest on the Boku situation. All of that coming up on the AM show. Do stay.
Hello, good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Earlier you heard Benjamin speaking to Al-Hassan Suhini on important matters currently in the country. It's now time for us to fix our focus in Boku. The Kusasis and Mamprusis in that conflict are worried about how the Upper East Regional Security Council is handling the crisis. They say authorities are not dealing with the real threats to peace and security in the area. Well, guess what? The Upper East Regional Minister, Stephen Yakubu and Rexec, decided to meet the feuding factions to listen to their concerns. Correspondent Albert Sori reports.
The Upper East Regional Minister, Stephen Yakubu, led the Regional Security Council to Boku with one mission in mind: to try one more time to broker peace between the Kusasi and Mamprusi ethnic groups, which have been involved in a chieftaincy dispute for many years now that has resulted in the loss of hundreds of lives. Last week, 8 people were killed in an incident described by natives of the Zogen suburb of Boku as an attack on innocent civilians by the military charged with the duty of maintaining peace in the volatile town. The Ghana Armed Forces later denied the allegations in a press statement. As head of the Regional Security Council, the regional minister must lead investigations into the incident, but first he needs to calm the people down. He arrives at Boku at the palace of the paramount chief, Naba Asigiri Abugurago Azoka II, and makes this passionate appeal to the chief and his elders and people.
We all know banks have closed, schools have closed, hospitals have closed, commercial activity is completely almost zero. People are scared. What are we doing? Let us seek peace.
The minister then gave an opportunity for representatives of the Ghana Health Services and the Ghana Education Service who were part of the entourage to talk to the people about how the conflict was affecting these sectors in the Boko municipality.
In Boko alone, we have lost as many as 70 of mothers who are dying because they wish they could get access to health workers to be able to give them timely health interventions.
But whilst the rep from the Ghana Education Service was speaking, sporadic gunfire suddenly could be heard in the distant atmosphere.
But in 2022, inter-district transfers alone was 95. 95 left Boko municipality to other districts in the region, and 85 teachers.
First, the gunfire was brief, so he was urged to continue with his address. But the gunfire resumed, this time louder and for a longer period.
That the conflict in Boko has robbed us of a teacher of Methodist Junior High School.
People around started getting alarmed. But again, the speaker was urged to ignore it and continue with his speech. However, this man would not take it anymore. He felt that what was happening did not make any sense. A pandemonium ensued. The Boko Naba was escorted back into his palace, and the Kusasi people did not hesitate to express how they felt about how the security of Boko was being handled. To them, the leaders were just scratching the surface and not dealing with the real threats to the security of Boko, like the perpetrators of the gunfire that had just been heard. The minister appealed for calm, and the meeting continued. However, after he said his goodbyes and was about to leave the Boko Naba's palace, his vehicle was nearly mobbed by an angry, onlooking crowd who were still expressing their frustrations. Next, the regional minister, Stephen Yakubu, met the elders and people of the Mamprusi faction. He made the same appeal as before.
Let's put our guns down. Let's talk. Let's seek peace.
The Mamprusis too did not hide their feelings about how the government was handling the security situation in Boko.
The security, they are here. They will tell you they know where the problems are coming from. But why is it that they cannot map out strategy to ensure that these bandits will not continue to disturb the peace that we are enjoying in Boko? It's because of politics. And we always blame you, regional minister, as head of RECSEC. Every day I blame you. I'm talking with people's lives. The Salmon Pit, over 300 and something police were deployed in Boko for the celebration of Salmon Pit Festival. But just after the celebration of the Salmon Pit Festival, we don't even know when the police left Boko. Is Salmon Pit Festival now a priority to RECSEC than the lives, the precious lives that are being lost in Boko?
This was the Upper East Regional Minister's response after hearing all sides.
I can assure you that we have heard you. We were expecting all what you have told us. We were expecting to be angry. We are expecting you to be telling us this. Yes. But we can tell you that we are not sleeping. We are doing all what we can to bring peace to Boko. So give us the trust. Trust in us. Inshallah, one day all of us will sit down and eat together as before. I will come here and do my campaign as before. I always come here, I'll do my campaign.
As we departed Boko, the general atmosphere was calm and people appeared to be going about their everyday life activities. But one could almost reach out and touch the tension in the air. Albert Sorry, Joy News, Boko.
That was a report put together by my colleague Albert Sori, who is correspondent for us in the Upper East region. Well, he joins us via Zoom with more on this issue. Hello, Albert. Good morning to you. Now, we know that the military says it foiled a bomb attack on a bridge in Boku. And it's getting worrying because the Minister for Defense himself, briefing Parliament, appeared quite frustrated at the situation and said that we needed to pay more attention to Boko. Tell us what the aftermath of that is, because we're hearing from the MP for the area that it was possibly an attack against the military because that is the bridge they use in getting into the community. What more are we learning on that?
Yes, Benny. So the first time that I heard about this was during the minister's visit to Boko, which I just put together in that report. Now, it was during his visit to the Mampusi faction that a young man who was chosen by the elders to speak on their behalf mentioned it almost in passing, because he was just talking about all the threats and all the things that have been happening in the town that he felt the security were not actually dealing with. So he mentioned that a day or two after the recent incidents involving the military, some people, planted explosives under that bridge and tried to blow it up. Now, the security, according to him, went there and saw the place, and they confirmed that that attempt was actually made. And he actually put this to the municipal security council members who were present at the meeting and told them that if he was lying, they should tell him that he was telling lies. But nobody said anything. Now, during the minister's response, he did not mention anything about the bridge. So we decided not to, put so much emphasis on it, because at the time we didn't have any confirmation from the security about it. So yesterday, when the defense minister mentioned it, I thought that, okay, so it meant that what the gentleman was saying was actually true. The MP himself has also confirmed that people in Boko have told him about it, and he had done his checks, and he's trying to get more confirmation on it. So it actually speaks to the fact that this may just have happened, because nobody is denying it anymore. But then it speaks to the seriousness of what is happening in Boko at the moment. If you watch the report that you just did, every member of the community in Boko are not happy about what is going on. And everybody is making it known. They are making it known to the government that enough is not being done. Because just imagine that the RECSEC, with all the sirens and all the police escorts that accompanied us to Boko, and they were there trying to see how to maintain the peace, some people were still firing gunshots. It was just an indication that people don't seem to even be afraid about the security apparatus anymore. And it's becoming a worrying situation.
Definitely. Now, the other worrying thing is the possibility of terrorists taking advantage of this and infiltrating. About a week ago, we heard from the regional minister who raised these concerns. Just yesterday, we heard from the defense minister as well. Tell us if you know what is being done in real terms in avoiding that infiltration we fear.
Yes, so the month of January was when we started getting more refugees. Since 2019, we are told some refugees from neighboring villages in Burkina Faso started arriving in the country. But last month, more of them arrived because of terrorist activity just across the border. Now, from what we are told, they mounted, surveillance around the borders, and they are making sure that even the refugees who are trooping in are screened. One of the people who has spoken to us about that is the district chief executive for West, where most of these refugees are in the communities of Sapelga and other places. And he tells us that, they are screening all these people very well to be sure that they are not even being traced by the people who chased them into the country and all of that. So the terrorism situation is real. The security apparatus are worried about it, but what we are told is that they are monitoring the borders, they are surveilling all our entry points to be sure that nobody comes into the country to cause problems for us in Boko. But the problem is that with security matters like this, you don't actually get to see what they are doing. And when things like this continue to happen, the general public just feels that maybe just enough is not being done to curb the situation. But we are told that they are surveilling the borders and some of the unapproved and all of that. There are joint security operations that are patrolling these places, and they are making sure that nothing threatens the security of the country.
One of the gentlemen who spoke when the minister visited the factions raised concerns about the number of police deployed to the area, and he felt that when the Sampandi festival, is that it? Samampi Festival. There was a deployment of about 300 people there, 300 officers there, and now they don't seem to have those numbers. For him, that shows a lack of commitment in fighting. Was there a direct response to the number of personnel deployed to the area? Do we know if there's going to be a beef up?
Yes, so the regional minister did not respond directly to this particular comment. Now, what we know is that security have been stationed for a very long time now. Even when we visited on Monday, there were a whole lot of security men, from different parts of, the security apparatus. So you had men from the army, you had police, and even sometimes fire officers are detailed in some of the places. So you could tell that security presence was in the town. The concern when it came to Samanpit was that this is a festival celebrated by the Kusasi people, and maybe the government just felt that if they didn't put enough men on the ground, maybe something bad could happen as they celebrated the festival, and that may explain why there were so many people on the ground on that day. But you get the sense that people feel, if you could get these people, this number of security people to come and try to maintain peace in the town during the festival, you should be able to do the same thing when people's lives are being lost. And that is, the concern for many people. The security are on the ground, but oftentimes you still get sporadic gunfire, even during curfew hours. And many people are concerned that the real perpetrators of the violence are being left off the hook, and it appears that the Regional Security Council is just scratching the surface when it comes to this matter. And these are concerns from both factions as far as this incident, what is happening in Boko is concerned. So that is just the general situation, the general feeling that people have about how the government is handling the situation.
Prior to meeting the factions, the minister had mentioned that a roadmap needed to be developed. Is this meeting a part of it, and what's the next step?
Yes, so he said that if you look at what happened last week when those people were killed and the military was accused, an accusation which they denied, the RECSEC feels that now there are, two sides to the story, and as a neutral security body, they will have to go in to investigate. But you get the sense that the Regional Security Council felt that before they can do any investigations, they needed to get into the town and, make the people feel that they are with them and they are doing everything to try and control the situation. Bernice, when we arrived at both factions, before the minister would speak, he actually took time to let everybody stand up and observe a minute's silence for the people who lost their lives, just to give the people that feeling that the government is mourning with them and is with them in this time of difficulty. So yes, the sense you get is that they will do the investigations from here out, but they needed to calm down the people. If they released a statement in which they urged the people not to try to confront the military because of the anger they had been feeling following last week's incident. So they needed to build on that step to make sure that they calm down the people, and then the investigations will continue. At the moment, we haven't heard from RECSEC yet as to exactly what they will do. But normally, they don't give too much away when it comes to what they are doing on the ground. So I'm not sure, we will know what exactly they are doing. But as and when they feel that the public needs to know the steps they have taken, they normally would either issue a press statement or call a media briefing and let us know.
Thank you, Albert. I'll ask you to hold on while I engage with Awal Ahmed Karyama. He's Executive Director, Rural Initiatives for Self-Empowerment Ghana. That's Rights Ghana. Is an NGO that works in the northern part of the country. It's based there as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Karyama, for joining us. Now, one critical aspect to this whole conflict has to do with the human rights angle and the fact that there may be feuding factions, but there are those who suffer as a result of these conflicts and activities, and primarily women and children. Tell us if your work extends especially to the Boko area and what you've observed over the years.
Yes, so thank you very much for the opportunity, and good morning to you and the management as well as the listeners and the good people of Boko and the Upper East region in general. The situation of Boko is very unfortunate. There is no aspect of human rights that has not been violated or abused since the Boko conflict re-erupted way back in November 2021. So we are talking about the fact that the resurgence of this conflict has dragged from November 2021 to date. And in between that, Ghana as a country, sovereign state, has ascribed to protect and uphold the citizens' rights in terms of from the right to survival, right to food, economic and cultural rights and all that. And when you situate that to Boko, all these rights are being violated. We are talking about the fact that the freedom of movement by people to be able to conduct their business from one place to another is restricted. We are talking about the fact that the right to life and survival of women and children especially is violated. And then also that of men and boys as well. So there are serious security lapses in the area. There are serious citizens' impunity in the area that has tended to undermine the very fundamental rights of the citizens of Boko. We have seen people going about their business and they have been accosted and shot and killed. And we have seen citizens make serious allegations about extrajudicial killings in terms of involvement of state security apparatus in the maintenance of the conflict, to the extent that people are accusing military of killing their citizens. People are accusing of military of entering their homes during curfew hours. And I think that these things have not been given the needed attention, national attention that it deserves. So because of that, a lot of this continue to happen. I mean, way back in 2008, there have been allegations of military involvement. And how much have we investigated this matter? And what feedback have we given to the citizenry? Look, as we sit today, our work in Boko, we have realized that there is a breakdown of trust and legitimacy of state institutions. We are talking about the fact that the RECSEC is a very impartial body, a very independent body that seeks to build and sustain peace in the Boko area. But as we speak, both factions do not trust the RECSEC as both factions do not trust the RECSEC, it's difficult for the RECSEC to be able to initiate measures that will bring lasting peace to the area. Number two, when you consider the fact that among the two feuding factions there is no trust, to the extent that if a Kusasi man goes to the Mampusi territory to commit suicide, normal suicide, it will not be seen as a suicide. If a Mampusi man goes to a Kusasi territory to commit suicide, it will not be seen as a normal suicide. They will take it as if that person has been killed by the other faction. So there is breakdown of trust, and then also there's a lot of political interference in terms of handling the matter. There are certain drastic measures that clearly need to be taken. I mean, we're not talking about, as a human rights organization, we'll not talk about any draconian measures or extrajudicial measures that will abuse the right of the citizenry. But we need to also understand and put it in context that whereas we exercise our rights ends where another person's loads begins. So if you want to express yourself, that vehicle should be there for people to be able to use due process to express themselves.
What are these drastic measures you talk about?
So for instance, recently the Regional Security Council initiated a measure where they ban the use of tricycles, popularly known as Kandu. And during that period, we know that a lot of livelihoods were lost, a lot of people couldn't earn a living. But it brought some sanity. The guns went silent in the area. But there was a lot of back and forth, and then one of the things we need to also look at is information management and propaganda. There's a lot of propaganda and disinformation and fake news in Boko going through social media, and so that affects the ability of the security to even collect the intelligence. So that drastic measure of banning the tricycles and the Kandu resulted in a situation where the guns went silent. But you have to look at it and balance it with the ability of the people to earn a livelihood. So based on that, and then after several appeals, the RECSEC rescinded that decision and they reintroduced this. But then the guns started blazing again. And it's unfortunate. I pity let me use the opportunity to say good morning to the Honorable Upper East Regional Minister and the entire membership of RECSEC. We have worked as an organization in terms of border security and others, and we know how difficult this situation is. And so I pity the Honorable Regional Minister in that he has a difficult task. Both sides are accusing him of not doing his work, and both sides are accusing the RECSEC of security lapse. It's a very difficult situation to work. So going forward, we want to be able to see that there is constant feedback and communication between the citizenry and the various security authorities, so that whatever there is information in terms of intelligence gathering, there is feedback, there is finality to issues, like when somebody is accused and then there is a report, let us get a conclusive report. And the RECSEC, we know that it's a security work they are doing. So it's not everything they can come out to the public. But feedback is very important. And because without feedback, then you lose your legitimacy. When you lose your legitimacy, then it becomes difficult for people to volunteer information, to trust you, as well as to rely on you for their safety. And so when people feel that the state cannot protect them, they unfortunately resort to use of extremism, and in this case, violent extremism. And I sit here to say that the case of Boko, there's a lot of violence extremism going on. People do not have trust in the system again because over the years they feel that that solution has not been granted. When somebody is abused, their right is violated or killed, they don't get access to justice.
Earlier you mentioned that this situation has not received as much national attention as you would want. What will constitute that needed national attention for you?
Yes, so first of all, let me also use the opportunity to commend the Parliament of Ghana. Yesterday they had a very passionate and informative discussion about Boko. And for me, that is just a beginning. And those are the kind of dialogues that we want to have. We should put Boko in the radar. You know why? Boko is a border town. Boko has border with two countries, Burkina Faso and Togo. And we just don't want one border. Okay? So we are at a place where, you know, other places people are interested in forming their own country. And people can use Boko as a test case to just try to form their own country. And then when they do that, it will mean that part of our northern borders will not be secure for us. So Boko is a very delicate area that we must pay urgent attention to here and now. And I said the Parliament started by discussing it yesterday. Beyond that, I think that they need to form a committee, an impartial committee of inquiry to look into the issues of Boko. Boko problem is older than some of us. Way back in the 50s, okay, way back in the independence era that it started. Why is it that we're not able to fix it? Is it that we don't have the expertise when in this country we can go to other places and provide technical support in terms of resolving conflict? And so once we begin discussing it at the Parliament, we should go a step further to set up a committee, something like the Eminent Chiefs, Committee of Eminent Chiefs, to look into the matter. What are the various stakes that are on the table? Present the various stakes and then use it and bring a finality to the issue so that whoever then disagrees with that, there is due process. And once the due process is followed and you disagree, then you face the rigors of the law. Until we do that, we will be just romancing the matter and touching it on the surface and leaving it. And look, the issue is so serious that, you know, police report is always sometimes, excuse me to say, PR. The police report sometimes is public relations. The actual deaths and the effect, as we speak today, one of the key things I'm passionate about is to see the people integrate. Today we have a market for Kusasis, we have a market for Mamprusis. Until the people come together, they will not forget that there is conflict. We need to create a symbiotic relationship where people understand that they can interact with each other. And when you come to my market and I go to your market, or we come to a common market, then you know that there is a risk in terms of creating conflict. But when we have people separate,
when the segregation
is
so
is getting deeper, unfortunately. It's getting deeper to the extent that certain people from one side cannot pass to one side. Mampusis cannot pass through a certain enclave. Kusasis cannot pass through a certain enclave. It's unfortunate. Then it creates a system where even the children and other future generations. And let's put it in context that all the people who are dying from this conflict, needless conflict, senseless conflict, have siblings, they have family. And going forward, what are the families? You get up and you hear that your father or your mother was killed, was slaughtered. I mean, a very old woman was slaughtered. So you get up and hear this story, and people say that they forgive, but they can't forget. We only hope that even everybody can forgive. It's not everybody who forgives. Those who don't forgive, what do they do then?
There are reprisals.
So we need to be able to provide justice to victims. And the human rights abuses in Boko are way too much.
You're not a security person, but I would just like to take your opinion on this. Do you think it's time for the president to speak to this issue head on and talk about it, what his plans are in terms of fixing the situation in Boko?
Yes, so you see, the Boko problem also is about chieftaincy. And once it's about chieftaincy, there are established institutions. That is why sometimes you hear people say that Ghana, we have all the laws, only that the laws are not biting or they're not working. We need to make our laws to work effectively. There are established institutions, mandated institutions that are supposed to handle issues of chieftaincy here. And one of the bane of Boko problem has been the political interference since independence. And if we want to rely to His Excellency the President has a mandate to ensure that the total security of the country is enhanced. However, there is an established institution, which is the House of Chiefs, that has mandate and jurisdiction over looking into chieftaincy affairs. And once House of Chiefs and other things sit on the matter, they should be able to enforce the law and change and make things as they are and communicate that change and enforce it. So there is a mandated state institution, and we should go to those state institutions to bring, because they have been time tested. And look, we're not talking about Boko alone. Boko is only 1 out of 500 potential cases. It's just unfortunate that the Boko case has dragged because people have taken entrenched positions over the years. But there are other 500 cases in Ghana related to chieftaincy, where if we don't take time, unfortunately, they may erupt one day. And we cannot allow the situation of Boko to be exploited. There are people who are, first of all, there are categories of people who benefit from the situation as it is.
Right.
Some politicians will not like the problem to be resolved because they benefit from it. There are some people we call conflictpreneurs who deal in weapons, arms and armory, and they service a market. As long as there's a raging conflict, they can service it. There's a very popular story in Boko, which is said that a certain gentleman wanted to sell arms and ammunition to his own people, and the people didn't buy. So he went to another enemy's territory and then fired gunshots into there, and then comes and says that, oh, you see, the people are coming after you. Then he raises the price of, there's that rumor in Boko, raises the price of the weaponry. So there are people who benefit from this. And also, one of the key aspects we need to look at is to have a dispassionate and balanced discussion in Boko, where the media gives prominence to the warring factions to be able to express their views. And some of the security aspects that we empanel on our TV programs, honestly, some of them are not in touch. They do not come from the area. They can't remember the last time they went to the area or did some work in the area. So some of the things they will profess may not be real. They will end up inflaming passions. Because when you hear a certain news about Boko, 90% of the news that comes up is propaganda and fake news. So if you're not careful, you come and sit on air and say certain things, and you will be doing somebody's bidding without knowing.
Yeah, and that's important because for, sometimes people don't understand why the media is very careful, in particular with the case in Boko, because we have received calls, for example, even sometimes when you harmlessly engage a certain person, one faction says, well, he belongs to that side, so everything he says is tainted. We don't want him to be involved in the discussion. So it's quite a delicate and a tricky matter. So, I mean, in conclusion, while we work at solving the problem, how do we ensure that in the process human rights are protected and people, even amidst the roadmap that the government is trying to set up or create to solve the problem, we can still ensure that people's rights aren't violated?
Yes, so to solve the problem of human rights abuses, first of all, we need to institute measures. Recently, we issued a press release and we're commending the Northeast Regional Security Council for taking proactive measures to provide escorts on the roads that lead to Northeast. We need to provide similar thing for the roads leaving and entering Boko so that there will not be gunshots.
Yep.
And so first of all, we need to silence the guns. We need to address the culture of impunity. People who commit crime, who kill people, should be brought to book immediately. And when they are brought to book immediately, it will serve as a deterrent to other people. People who feel that their victims have been killed and they have not had access to justice, they will have a feel of the fact that justice is coming, and then they will also not resort to using violence to address their differences. And we need to be able to put in measures where the people integrate. When they integrate, then the issues of abuses here and there, kidnapping of people, shooting at night, and the other things will stop.
So I just want to find out with Rise Ghana, what exactly you're doing in that part of the country, and what the challenges have been and what it will take for you to exactly execute your mandate.
So we have been working seriously and advocating for police coverage, to increase in the number of police coverage and issues around police accountability. We are concerned about certain dealings of the security apparatus, and we've been issuing a number of press releases trying to ensure that all the necessary stakeholders do their bit. We're working with traditional authorities and religious leaders. We're working with a lot of youth groups to be able to address this. And then we recently modeled a poem, and the poem says that first they came. It's a poem that is modeled from the Jewish uprising and then the issues of the Nazi killing in Germany. And basically we're saying that first they came for for instance, they came for the Fulanis. And Boko is a very cosmopolitan and multi-ethnic area. There are Fulanis, there are Bises, there are Mampusis, there are Kusasis, there are several tribes there are Dagombes. So we coined a poem from our office and we said that first they came for the Fulanis. I did not speak up because I'm not a Fulani. Then they came for the Busanga. I did not speak up because I'm not a Busanga. They came for the Kusasi. I did not speak up because I'm not a Kusasi. They came for the Mampusi. I didn't speak up because I'm not a Mampusi. When they came for me, there was no one to speak for me. And that is the situation of Boko. If we don't speak up, there is no ethnic group in Boko that has not suffered this gun violence and killing. So until we speak up, that it concerns everybody. And we need to understand that young people are losing their lives, businesses are collapsing, children are not able to go to school. I mean, it's not proper for you to be deprived of a childhood. If you look at our Children's Act, it says that the best interest of the child must always be promoted. And the best interest of children in Boko is to get the better education, to be in school, to have a right to play, to have a right to interact and learn other cultures. But the people of Boko are depriving the children of that right. And until we institute those measures and ensure that people who commit these crimes are brought to book, and then sit and judge and bring lasting solutions to it. Boko is not a big deal that cannot be solved. We have the expertise in this country that can solve Boko. We only need the political will and the commitment from both factions to be able to address the issue.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Awal Ahmed Kariama is Executive Director, Rural Initiatives for Self-Empowerment Ghana, Rise Ghana, and they have been working in northern parts of the country. And today we'll be speaking about their work in the Boko area and sharing as well in terms of human rights angle, what should be done to protect the rights of people living there, especially women and children. Well, from Boko, let's head to Tamale, because staff of the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NETCO, are on a sit-down strike. They're demanding the removal of their managing director, Osmani Ayuba. they've partially withdrawn their services and said they'll only attend to emergency situations. Well, this morning, I will be speaking to William Asare, Chairman of the Senior Staff Association for NEDCO and VRA. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners.
What exactly is your basis for demanding the removal of Mr. Ayuba?
Thank you. Mr. Ayuba was appointed as Managing Director NEDCO somewhere in July 2019. At the time, the board told us that the problems in NEDCO are financial. So they are bringing somebody with some financial background to help turn around our finances. As we speak now, if you take our finances from 2019 up to date, they have deteriorated. In fact, our cash flow situation has worsened to the extent that we are owing so many contractors. We are unable to pay. Just somewhere. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Asare. Yes, you can please proceed.
Yes, I was saying that somewhere last year, our contractors in Upper East area had to go on sit-down strike for not up to date. We were not able to pay. Two, you know, any company like NEDCO should be run with a strategy. For the past 3 years, there hasn't been any strategy to drive NEDCO. Thirdly, some management inactions has caused NEDCO to lose the much needed revenue. You'll recall that in September last year, the PRC increased utility tariffs. We are deploying some meters in Tamale. From September up to December, more than half of the customers were not able to implement the tariff for those prepaid meters. And that occasioned the loss of over 2 million Ghana cedis. Our distribution, all our key performance indicators from 2019 up to date has worsened. Thirdly, some POA devices that were purchased by management were very, very exorbitant. Look, the device that ordinarily cost about $500, NEDCO management purchased that device for $1,328. We had written several letters to the MD, practically begging him to halt those expenditures. That did not yield any results. Over the 3 years, the Ayuba management has spent over $40 million on projects that have not yielded the desired results. So as we speak now, our finances are terribly bad. And our staff, it will be irresponsible on our part to keep watching whilst our situation deteriorates. It's the reason why we are calling for a change in leadership.
And in your second point, you said there's no strategy in helping the company make its profits and also execute its mandate. What exactly do you mean?
You know, for an ailing company like NEDCO, you need to have a plan. So if you take first year, you know your problems. You know you need to improve your revenue. You need to cut down on distribution losses. So what is the plan? What is the plan? First year, second year, third year. How do we evaluate the plan? What were the set targets? How did you miss it? What were you able to achieve? There is no plan, and because of the lack of a strategic plan for the company, it has resulted in management spending money left, right, here. Today they spend money on this. Tomorrow they spend money on this. The next day they are spending money on this. And to the extent that they have spent over $40 million, and we are where we are, there's nothing to show for that kind of expenditure. Our key performance indicators have deteriorated, and some of the expenditures management, if you ask them what is the benefits of those projects, they are not even able to evaluate the projects to tell you the outcomes.
So have you had any response on this demand you've made, and what is the next step for you?
We have met our board on 2 occasions, and let me add that on those 2 occasions, they basically said that, look, they are also concerned about the way the finances are going. And the last time we met them was on February 3rd in Tamale. But they said our demands are legitimate, but for them, they are not the appointing authority, so they will escalate the matter to the appointing authority and then revert back to us.
And do you know if the appointing authority has been informed?
The Minister of Energy has invited us to a meeting in Accra this morning, and we'll be meeting the Minister this morning to hear from the appointing authority.
All right, we'll leave it here for now and stay in touch with you on what exactly comes out of that meeting. William Asare is chairman of the Senior Staff Association of VRA and NETCO, and we've been talking about that strike by staff there. They're demanding the removal of their boss, Osmani Ayuba. Well, from Tamale, we go to the Ashanti region because there's quite a lot happening there. Nanayao Jima joins us. Hello, Nanayao, how are you? Let's start off with the arrest of the youth organizer of the NDC Swami chapter. He is said to have made some comments inciting violence ahead of the elections. What exactly do you know in terms of what's happened to him and the police's case against him so far?
So what I can report is that he is in police custody as I speak now. Yesterday, together with some party executives in the region, he was taken to the police station. You know, about 3 days ago, the police declared him wanted through a press release that stated that he has been involved in inciting the supporters of the National Democratic Congress to injure or maim people in the ruling NPP who will stand in their way of wresting power from the NPP. Now, after this press release, the NDC executives in the Ashanti region went ahead to meet the regional police command, had deliberations with them, and the NDC, they promised to bring him to the police the next day. So the next day, which was yesterday on Wednesday, the NDC took him to the Suntreso police station. Before that, they had taken him to the regional headquarters, the Central Police Command.
Hello, Nanayao. Well, there appears to be a challenge with Nanayao's line there, but he was just giving us an update on that.
Police.
Hello, Nanayao, if you can hear me, we lost you for a few seconds. If you can just rehash your point from the beginning. Hello, Nanayao. Well, we seem to have a challenge with Nanayao's line. We'll try and rectify it and get him. Well, I'm told he's back. Hello, Nanayao. Can you hear me? If you can, just rehash your point.
So what I was saying is that yesterday, the regional executives of the National Democratic Congress took Mr. Razak Avolia to the police. They first took him to the regional police headquarters, where earlier, a day before, the regional executives and the NDC had met the regional command. Who at the time was not available to the police. So they reported to the regional police and they were referred to Suntreso District Police Station, under whose jurisdiction the Swami constituency falls. So yesterday, together with some party supporters and some national and also the regional executives of the National Democratic Congress, they all marched to the Suntreso police station to hand him over to the police. And the information that I have is that his caution statement was taken by the police and they charged him with offensive conduct. And it's expected that today he will be taken to the Asokore-Mampong District Court for the court to determine what happens to the case from there. The information that I also had from the police station is that they will continue to keep him. So they kept him yesterday through to today, and today they'll forward the matter to the court.
Right, let's move on to another issue, the Duraman Anglican SHS issue. And we were told at the time the incident occurred that some 5 students were in critical condition. What's the latest on them?
So as at yesterday, these students who were in critical condition had been stabilized. Now, the information that I have from the medical officers at the Edra Government Hospital is that one of them was referred to the Jamal Sheikh Hospital because that one had some injury, extensive injury to the leg. So this one individual who is a female student was referred to the Jamal Sheikh Hospital, and presently the information I have is that she is doing well. She is recovering fast, very, very fast there. So all the students are in stable condition, and more than 30 of these students have been discharged. That's 49 students were admitted at the hospital after the incident happened. The day after, about 28 of them were discharged. And now the information I have is that over 35 of these students have subsequently been discharged by the Ejura government hospital. So at the moment, all students are doing well.
And so what's happening with the other students left on campus? How are they eating? Where are they eating?
So this incident happened on Monday evening when students were going to have their lunch. So when the incident happened, after the others were taken to the hospital, the rest of the students were made to go into their dormitories and have the evening off. The next morning, academic work resumed. When I visited there on Tuesday, all students had resumed academic work. They were going about their academic duties, going to the classrooms. When it was time for lunch, they all came out and lunch was served under some trees in the school. They had to stand to have their lunch. And I had conversation with the district chief executive and also the NADMO, that's the national NADMO director, Nana Prempe, who also visited the school. And according to him, together with the district chief executive, they will provide a temporary space for these students to have their lunch or to serve as dining hall for these students. So what I can report is that calm has returned to the campus. Students are going about their normal academic duties, and there are arrangements to get a place for these students to have their lunch. And we are confident that by tomorrow we'll be able to once again speak to the district chief executive and get more information on the new place that's being prepared for these students. And the NADMO is also teaming up with the district chief executive to put forward a request to the Ghana Education Service and also the GET Fund to try and see if these two institutions will help the school with a new dining hall so that this challenge that the school have faced for a very long time will be dealt with immediately. Now, if we should talk, we can talk about some of the facilities in this school, the classrooms. Some of them do not fit for purpose. This school was constructed somewhere 20 years ago, and some of these temporary structures that were made to serve as classrooms for these students for a short period, they've been the same classroom that have been used for about 20 years. Some have developed cracks, and some are in really poor shape, just as the dining hall which collapsed in. So some of these students who study in this condition or in these classrooms, they are not happy about it. And some personal interaction with some of them, they tell me that they have some fear because they saw the nature of the dining hall, and it can be compared to some of these facilities that are serving as classrooms for them. So they would want government to take urgent steps to deal with the infrastructure problems of the school. And when I went there, I saw this two-story building that had been built by government, but it was yet to be commissioned for students to use as classrooms. So probably if that facility should come on board, the challenge in a way will be dealt with.
And you're saying this two-story was completed, ready to be used. Is that the case?
Exactly, it was completed. The information that I had is that it's also finished. So I think they would want to do a ceremony of a sort to open it up for students to use. So it's unclear when
Do we know how long it's been completed for?
Unfortunately, we are not privy to that information. But even the rainstorm affected that building as well, because it sat close to the dining hall. So some of the roof from the dining hall, which ripped off, fell on the other roof, which also, damaged it to some degree. So it's also developed some defects due to the rainstorm that was experienced at Edra on Monday.
Nanaya, I'm told it's been raining quite a lot in the Ashanti region. Do we know what the forecasters are saying, considering that you just mentioned that some of these facilities in the school are similar to the one that collapsed on these children?
So we've been experiencing some rains this week. Even this morning, the clouds are forming. So there are chances that we'll also see some rains today. And from what I've been monitoring, according to the weather forecast, there's some water vapor in the air. So there are chances that today there will be some rains. From an interview I had with the NADMO yesterday, they told me that since we entered this week, some areas have been experiencing very strong thunderstorm, and for instance, a drought. Even before the school had an issue, there were some houses which had their roofs ripped off, and they've been, getting some of these cases and been attending to them regularly. So they advise people to take caution, especially as the rains come in, and there are chances that the rains that will be experienced recently will be very heavy.
Thank you so much. Nanaya Juma is our man in the Ashanti region, ending off on that very important note. If you find yourself in the Ashanti region town, Kumasi, or any town within that region, you just want to be extra careful as the predictions of more rain. Well, it's now time for a breather here on the AM show. We'll be back with more. Do stay. Hello there. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. We continue our campaign on the Accra-Tema motorway, demanding that it be fixed. Motorists who ply that stretch are asking government to remove abandoned toll booths that sit in the middle of the road. 2 of these were run into in 2022, resulting in several casualties. Michael Ashedi has more in the latest of a series dubbed The Deadly Highway.
Government has abolished all tolls on public roads and bridges.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in 2021 announcing the end of the collection of tolls across the country, giving effect to an earlier communique from the Ministry of Roads and Highways abolishing road tolls.
This takes effect immediately. The budget is approved on appropriation.
Before that announcement, toll booths were always busy. Drivers had to pay between 50 pesos and 2 cedis to toll attendants. The process was slow, resulting in vehicular congestion and sometimes long queues. The traffic was unbearable, but not for hawkers who were cashing in. The toll centers had now become mini markets. Roads Minister Kwesi Amwakwata said the tolls had to go for 2 major reasons. First, to ease the flow of traffic.
Ghanaian roads originally, were not designed for towing. You have a single carriageway. With 2 lanes. Then in the middle, you put a toll booth. What are you doing? Both sides. You are creating artificial queues, and people were in queues, for between 1 hour to 4 hours. You get to the toll point, and you pay 50 pesos. 50 pesos.
And then, for a more controversial reason, the e-levy bill, which was yet to be passed at the time.
The government, in its wisdom, has proposed the passage of the e-levy, to bring in more revenue to build the road infrastructure of our country.
When the booths were operational, vehicles slowed down to pay their tolls, many of them moving at less than 20 kilometers per hour. The booths are now abandoned and drivers are beginning to floor their pedals. Around the stalls, drivers are far from safe as many of them drive past the cubicles at very high speeds. There are many pathways through the toll booth. Sport for choice, many drivers only make up their mind in the last minute. And when the worst happens, driving into the stalls is an inevitable option.
I always run from Accra to Tema more times.
Bright regularly uses the motorway.
But it's like, how often, whenever I'm passing, I used to see more of 40 cars. Some will be climbing this, some will be climbing this, some too will be mixing their routes. You see, as these ones are coming like this, they will just cross the other, and the other two will cross, and before you see, they will all climb. That's the cause of the breaking of the toll booth.
More than 2 million vehicles use the motorway every day. The booths have now become high-risk accident areas. Before the closure, there were 12 toll booths. Just a year and a half later, only a few still stand. On May 27, 2022, a tipper truck crashed into two of the stalls, injuring two.
For the dangers are many.
Musa Shaibu and his friends work close to the Accra-bound toll booth. They are the first on site, offering first aid in the best way they can.
And I've been actually witnessed quite a number of times when this incident happens, and it is not an easy thing.
On August 30, 2022, a MAN diesel truck from Tema crashed into one of the toll booths while heading towards Accra. Musa notes that the rate of accidents around the toll booth has increased since it was shut down.
This toll booth here, so far since its closure, there have been more than 100 accidents, of which at least close to 50 individuals have already died here.
At the Accra-bound toll area, it is business as usual. The long trucks park dangerously close to the road. Some are busy inspecting their vehicles, whereas many others take a nap while waiting for the night. The booths have been left to wear. Wires hang down dangerously. Some key installations have either been removed or begled. With no lights, the booth is dark at night. The stalls now serve as shelter for many who seek it.
I sleep inside the two booths.
Which of them?
The second room. Yeah.
For how long now?
For about 2 months now.
At the Tema-bound toll area, we met James Edu Nuyama. It appears James is not alone. We found many more people taking shelter in and around the booth. As an express motorway, the number of U-turns were restricted. But over the years, many illegal U-turns have sprung up. It is a common feature along the entire stretch of the motorway. Motorcycle riders and vehicles alike. At the Tema-bound toll booth, we found one of such illegal passages. A man guards the pathway, waiting for customers. The drivers will only be allowed when they have given something. patiently for an opening, then drive against traffic onto the road, putting the lives of other commuters at risk. Not one, not two, but many people use that route. In February 2022, the government announced novel plans to refurbish the abandoned booths.
We have come out with a lot of suggestions. We even want to refurbish all those toll booth structures to provide proper and decent washrooms, for instance, for the use by motorists.
Later, Roads Minister Mwakwata changed his mind.
Among others, I said the ministry has plans and government has plans. We are thinking of a lot of ways to put the toll booths.
More recently, government gave the slightest indication that road tolls will be reintroduced, except it will be on new roads, including a reconstructed Tema motorway.
And certain highways, when built to the right specification, will come with towing facilities. But those towing facilities, will be electronic towing facilities.
Until then, some motorists think the booths should be removed.
You see, so if the issue is about them quitting it, then it's better they have to demolish all these things so that the cars will get free chances to move. That is my point of view. They should get free chances to move. Because sometimes they get there and they get confused, they'll miss their lane, and they'll just go and crash up and hit one of the toll booths. That's the cause of the broken ones over there. So I think the government have to do something about it.
Okay, now, so far, if you have closed even the toll booth, why not at least putting some sort of signals around the toll for people or motorists to know that these toll booths are closed, especially those who are new on this route. You understand? It isn't there. Even closing it, fine. If you close it in order to hand Ghanaians of some kind of levy, fine.
The motorway and its booths continue to put many motorists in harm's way. Many have died, and countless others have survived a near-death experience. An urgent call for authorities to do something about it. Until then, the motorway continues to be a deadly highway. For JoyNews, Michael Ashali.
Thanks for staying on the show. Benjamin Akakpo has joined me because it's time to get interactive with you. The number to call 0302 211 691 0302 211 691. Benjamin.
Here we are. Interesting conversations we've had this Thursday morning, and even as we activate the phone lines, I'd like to talk about that story as well, highlighting RTI request to the Ghana Airports Company and their dealings with Frontiers Company. And you know what they told us initially when we put in a request? That the information we requested was exempt under the law, but the RTI Commission says apparently
give them the information they need.
Yeah, so it is what it is, where we await the information, so to speak. I don't know what viewers think about it, but it's one of the things you can share your thoughts on, apart from the Boku situation.
Yeah, and at the height of COVID, it was one of the deals that a lot of people were interested in, obviously because of the revelations on how much was being paid, not revelations per se, concerns rather, about how much was being paid and what percentage of it was going to the company and what percentage of it was coming to Frontier. So let's just see how it goes. Once we get that information, we'll share it with you. First caller, Akonoba from Kumasi. Good morning, let's hear you.
Yeah,
How are you? My brother.
We are doing well, thanks for asking.
Very well.
Yeah, I'm also fine. Yesterday, you misconstrued me, my lady. What I was saying is that the name John Mahama is holy, it's a holy name. And now, as it stands, Ghanaians believe in him. So, any question that is attached to John Mahama is a question that people think that John Mahama is the right person. That's what I wanted to bring out. And it's a fact. See, let me go on to my topic. Today, you interviewed Alata Sukini, our honorable guest, to ask him a specific question about his take on the alleged utterances of our youth organizer. And he was emphatic. What is the capacity of this youth organizer? You see, under this President Akufo-Addo's government, there's one person that in my mind, that I'm alleging that it's about the law. Who is going to get upon? Yes, in my mind, I'm alleging that it's about the law. He insulted the judge, he's working freely. He positioned a deceased person, Ahmed Swale, and he told the whole world that if anyone sees he should deal with him, he will solve it. The person is working freely. So if a youth organizer, after the intimidation and the text that some of us saw the team and South in the election, he is resisting or is speaking something that would create a character of resist the oppressors group. The police will go after him and leave him in Japan.
I have a question for you, Akonoba. Do you subscribe to what he said? Do you find it proper what he said about even getting to the point of
even if
giving
it means,
up life and all of that? Is that, are you saying you approve of those comments?
My dear lovely brother, the statement or the purport...
No, I'd like you to specifically answer that question. I get broadly what you've said, but do you approve of what he said?
I subscribe it because it was a conditional statement. It was a conditional statement. He said MPP people have beaten us. And I have evidence that the Team and South, what happened, people were killed. Up to now, the president has not able to make a public statement about it. So what the guy said was a conditional statement. So I support it. He said, if, because they have beaten us, they are also preparing. Resist the oppressors group. Resist the oppressors group. So if the law is not working, if people are seen as special than other people.
Well, we have to end it there, Akonoba. I actually think we lost him there. But and this is the same question I posed to Inusa Hussaini when I hosted him yesterday. Does it justify the actions of this youth organizer? And to say that what is his strength in terms of influence within the party is neither here nor there. For me, he is a youth organizer of a certain constituency, and so he has people who respond to his call, people he has a certain influence over.
I think both of them would have spoken to you from the standpoint of capacity in law. Law has what we call capacity, which would also border on the possibility of this person. What force does the person have? For example, let me use the extraordinary example of a coup d'etat. When someone says, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, what is the capacity of the person? That must be taken into consideration. But in this instance, no one can move away from the recklessness of the act. And that is why we are all roundly condemning it. But in terms of capacity, those who have spoken from the legal end have some reason.
Before we move to our next caller, just by way of an update, if you were not watching the show from the beginning or my interaction with Nana Yaujima, he did mention that he's still in police custody and will be appearing before court today. So we will keep our eyes on that story, and you'll hear details here on your most credible news source. Let's go to Kumasi. Mensa is there. Hello, Mensa. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
I fully subscribe to what the guy said. I don't see anything wrong with it because it looks like when NDC is favored, the police are very proactive. When it's MPP, they go to sleep.
So you'd rather react to violence with violence? Is that what you're saying?
If you sit in your house and somebody comes, gate in your house, you leave that person to go alone.
But that's why the police is there. That's why the security agencies there.
What happened to Kennedy Japan? When he said, if you see a gunman, if you see another man, kill him. What happened to him?
But you do acknowledge two wrongs don't make a right?
Yes. I do agree with that. But you see, you must look at the thing. You must look at it from various points of view. When the what's good for the food, it's also good for the ganga. Because Japan said if nothing happened, we've seen people in MPP, high-rank people, making similar comments. Nothing happened. The police went to sleep. Not even a statement from them. Then an APC man makes it that very soon they are proactive to go and arrest him. It doesn't work out well.
Well, thank you so much, Mensa, for your comments. But Benjamin, I'm deeply worried with the posturing over two political parties when it comes to the issue of violence, because you see, when you sit down and talk to people who've been in countries that have been affected by some of these things, and they start with things like this, justifying and one saying you did this, I'm going to do it, and before you realize it's spiraled out of control.
The tit for tat bit. And that is why I find it fortunate that the communications director of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, came out with that statement that, look, this was not proper, but we are calling for leniency for him. What I found distasteful was the communications director of the MPP, Richard Ayangba, trying to make a meal out of the situation, because you see, then it feeds into what some of our callers are saying. You've had people from your end do perhaps much worse. Don't make political meal out of it. Focus on the matter and say that this is not, but don't try to whitewash, the party political thing. That is my problem. And when you do that, then you create some of...
and that's why I'm not taking any of them out. The two parties have a very bad posturing when it comes to issue of violence. And I'm really disturbed, honestly, because we've had even colleagues here who've suffered from election violence. Some of them are still nursing wounds as far back as 2016, and they've never fully recovered. So please, let's stop these things. I mean, we must agree that we have chosen a democratic path. And that's the path we've chosen. It must be free of violence. And when somebody is found to have perpetrated violence, they must be punished, no matter which side of the divide they may belong to. We are still in Kumasi. Up and Down joins us. Hello, Up and Down. Let's hear you.
Good morning, Akakpo and Benny.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Akakpo, can you find out from my baby doctor when the program is started?
Are you the baby? she's in a much better position to let you know about that.
We will communicate it to you soon, but expect it on your screens really soon.
I'm actually waiting for my baby doctor.
Sure. Thank you.
Anyway, as Akakpo rightly said, two wrongs doesn't make right. And we must know that when someone commits an error, it should be handled, but the other should not copy it, in the sense that when one person commits an error, but the other one fails to react to that error, there will be nothing like violence or disturbances. But when one commits an error and then the other one reacts, that is where you have the consequences. So if some people have ever made some comments which doesn't order well for peace, but it has not be handled all that well as expected by others, at least we have to let it go. But when it means to react in that manner, in fact, it should not be well for us. So most of the time, we think about creating and making peace, but not rather reacting to issues or comments that can destabilize our peace. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Abendao. It's interesting when he talks about there not being violence if one doesn't react, but sometimes we know that there are unprovoked attacks, and you may be actually minding your own business and then you will be affected. You know, the gentleman who lost his life just around Ayawaso during the, I think it's just around the, is it the Latabio Koshi area, who was shot? The Muslim guy, I'm told, was actually not really a part of the whole scuffle. So there are people who will suffer as a result and not be necessarily involved. We have a caller from Takrade, is it? Emmanuel, hello, thank you for joining us. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good morning to all your family.
Good morning.
My sister, what happened to Kennedy Japan? I believe when he made that statement, he was sent to court. So what is wrong with this guy also being sent to court? We don't want violence in this country. So if NDC can support this guy with this kind of words, I think it's unfortunate. And I want to update on when Ken Oforiatta will be sacked, because it's not good for the country. I wish the majority will rise again and speak against it, because things are not going well. We are tired of being Ghanaians. Thank you very much.
Well, we cannot give you an update on when he will be sacked. That's the decision of the president to make. Of him to resign. But we can give you an update. At least we know that he's expected in Parliament on Tuesday to brief the MPs on the debt exchange program. That we can say. And even that we have to be cautious, because we know that sometimes he may choose not to appear. So that's what we know for now. But as to what happens to him in terms of he remaining in office, we cannot tell.
Well, you can still call that number, 0302-211-691. Share your thoughts with us. Let us know what is on your mind. But I did make mention of this point, and I think it's worth highlighting. We spoke to the Ghana Airports Company Limited and requested details about Frontiers Healthcare, those who oversaw the COVID-19 what was it? The vaccine? No, it wasn't the vaccination, was it?
It was the checks at the airport, having to pay just to get your test done.
All of those
before
tests.
You enter. Yeah.
And we were told that, hey, this information is exempted, and so you cannot get it. Bottom line, but. We're back at that, and we put in a request to the RTI Commission, and guess what? They ruled in our favor. We'll be bringing you snippets of that. You can get the full details of the story on myjoyonline.com and on JoyNews on Facebook. But I'm really happy about this. It's another win for public information. It's another win for accountability.
But how is this even exempt? How is
in this country, institutions simply don't like giving out information.
Anyway, it appears
it is
it is what it is. It appears we're getting a lot of calls from Kumasi this morning. We have another. Joseph. Hello, Joseph. Good morning. Let's hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My take is on what the youth organizer for NDC has said. I think as a country, we must begin to understand that that is happening is not new. And as a country, we need to begin to sit down and think through how our politicians, the direction in which they lead us. We are not supposed to be following them. Not at all. If you ask me, I think some years back, we had Ken Oforiatta, Akufo-Addo, and others go on a demonstration. In that demonstration, somebody lost their eye. They have been in power for 6 years. I have no idea where that person is. If you follow these politicians and you engage in violence, at the end of the day, you are the only person who loses. So we must all educate ourselves as Ghanaians not to follow them. The things they do, they only recycle it. When one is doing something bad, the other takes advantage of it. When the table turns around, they do the same. So I'm pleading with all Ghanaians. The way to go about everything or anything is not violence. The videos we've seen in countries that are involved with civil wars is something we definitely not want in this country. So I hope that this guy's case, it could be used as a scapegoat. We like pleading on behalf of people who fall foul to the law. It's too much. And it is the reason why we keep on breaking our laws. There's so much corruption. There are so many bad things in this going on in this country, and nothing happens about it. At least there should be a point in time in our lives as Ghanaians that things must begin to change for the better. When somebody falls foul to the law, the law must take its course.
Thank you.
And at least it was.
Thank you. I think your point is made. Thank you for joining the conversation. And it is apt what you just shared with us. It is spot on. The pleading sometimes is too much. My only problem in there is that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And so when other people are not, it's almost as though there were two different laws in the country.
Depending on for the one in power.
Exactly.
And the law for the one who is in opposition.
That is what we must do our best to avoid. But before we take leave of you, we all know water is life. Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. And guess what? We have the perfect sizes for all purposes. 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 milliliters for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. Our 19-liter jar bottles are ideal for offices and homes. All you must do now is drink Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. So choose a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water today and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you buy, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's another quality product from Casapreco Company Limited. For bulk purchases, you just need to call that number, 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved.
And the news review on the AM show is courtesy Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. Here's how you can find them. If you are in Accra, locate them opposite the Shell signboard, Accra Spintex, Kumasi Kronum Aboy here behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, they are at Anaji Estate in Tema Community 22. Techiman Hensia Isiama Inzima. You can call these numbers 0244867068 or 0274234321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic diseases, and it's the end of our show today. Thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. God willing, we are back tomorrow, wrap up the week, and look forward to the weekend. But it's now time for News Desk to stay. From Benjamin and I, it's goodbye and take care.